Hey, Brad, watch out. Here, you can take the mouse.
So that's the camera.
All right. Hey, are we all checked in? Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm known on Twitter as Crypto Jake, but you can call me Jacob or Jake, whatever, I don't really care. Welcome to the first official Bitcoin private conference. We have a star-studded cast coming up today. First starting with Tizen, then myself, followed by Reegan. Is Leon here?
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe not Leon. And then finally, the founder, Rhett Creighton. So to start, I'm going to introduce Ty, who, if many of you may not know, he started the first and potentially the most successful trading platform on YouTube, or so he claims. So without further ado, Ty, why don't you come on up here and we'll listen to what you have to say.
Thanks, guys. That was a joke. You just lost the bet. Wait, we put money on that? So I just bet. Jake here. He said I'm gonna do the longest intro ever. Watch, it's gonna take 20 minutes. If you can do an intro for 20 minutes long, I owe you a ZClassic.
Oh man,
seconds.
I missed that part.
Okay. All right, guys. Is that big enough? Because I think it's not. That's not. Can you take a look at that? All right. Hold on, real quick. Okay. So this is the first time that I've had to broadcast in person, guys, and live stream right here in front of the webcam here. So hello out there, guys. Everybody that's listening in. Is the live stream working?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Good. Okay. All right. Hi guys, want to welcome everyone to the first official Bitcoin private conference here, guys, in Austin, Texas. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, my name is Ty Zen, in case you're new to cryptocurrency, right? First of all, guys, before we start, guys, you guys see me sweating up here, okay? It's because we have been running at 100 miles an hour. You guys may not have seen it, okay? But before we start, guys, I really need to thank the people who just made this happen in the last like 4 hours that was in here setting up this whole thing, guys, okay? So first of all, Jake, everybody give him a hand, guys. Thanks, Jake. And then there's these other people that I'm gonna just name them out real quick and then we just applaud them all at once. Adib over here, Texas Miner, and then we got Kurt over there from Touch Titans, and this over here from New York. This whole room here, guys, was filled with another party in here, and they're having some kind of, I think, Christian pro-life group. And these New York guys came in here, and I told them we need this room, and they just came in here and just ran everybody out. I'm like, hey, man, be gentle, man. We're in Texas, man. And I'm like, don't worry, man. We'll clear it out. And they cleared out and helped us set all this up. So thanks to you guys a lot for flying in from New York to join this first Bitcoin private conference, right? And then the rest of my team back there, Reegan, thanks Reegan, Denny, David, Eric, and then Mariah out there. She did a great job of signing everyone in, guys. And then back there also, and then so give them a hand, guys, you know. So the other person that we all need to thank is this gentleman right here. Raise your hand, Rhett. So, here, the founder of Bitcoin Private, ZClassic, and all that, you know, we all wouldn't be here. And these guys wouldn't be flying down from New York. How many guys flew in from outside of Austin to be here, from outside of state? Look around, guys. Look around, Rhett. Man, that's huge. That's huge. All right. So thanks for coming down, guys. Thanks for supporting Rhett, you know, thanks for supporting Jake, Bitcoin Private, and everything, okay? So, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to go and go over some of the Bitcoin stuff real quick, just basic stuff for the folks that are new to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? One of the things that I always do, oh, I keep forgetting the webcam is right here. One of the things that I always do, guys, is that when I come to a conference like this, I always want to know who's the guy up at the front talking, running his mouth, okay? So just real quick, guys, before I get started, quick disclosure that our lawyers want us to do. Basically, it just says that whatever you hear me talk about, I'm invested into it. So that's full disclosure. So that obviously, if we help put this event together, Bitcoin Private, it's obvious we're invested in, okay? So here's another disclosure saying that there could be a direct conflict of interest because we're talking about something that we are invested in, okay? All right, some quick house rules here, guys, for computer security reasons, all right? House rule number one, this is a, hey, I forgot to update. This is a conference, not a trading or investing conference. Do not ask for financial advice from me or anyone here. Do not ask any speaker here for buy, sell, or hold advice, all right? And also, do not send any Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies to anyone here. No one, okay? If anyone from my staff or from Jake or anybody here asks you to send ZClassic or anything Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies, do not do that, okay? Do not show your cryptocurrency wallet to anyone here. Do not show your blockfolio. Do not show anything to anybody else here, please, okay? They might rob you out of the parking lot or something, I don't know. But do not ask anyone here to help you with your cryptocurrency wallet either. Don't be sitting there going, hey, I'm trying to download this ZClassic wallet. Can you help me so I can send the ZClassic here? More than likely, they'll probably here, try send it to this address first, see if it works. Do not do that, okay? Listen here first, okay? Please do not do that, all right? Okay, so there's 5 reasons why you should listen to us here. And I'm not one of those Asian guys that's good in math, science, or technical stuff. That's what Rhett is here for, guys. All right, so there's only 5 reasons up there. There's only 4. That's okay. We make mistakes, all right? So, all right. Reason number 1 is that we have the first and oldest cryptocurrency investing channel that we know of, okay? It's like 25,000 subscribers. We started back like 4.5, 5 years ago. I started talking about Bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, and all that good stuff, right? Reason number two, we made a bunch of documented calls on our Twitter, on our channel, and everything that shows that, you know, we have some clue of what we're doing, right? With all the before and afters right here. Also, Ty's most respectful man in crypto. I didn't say that. Bitcoin Meister said that, and then Omar said that also. I don't know why he said that while he was in bed, but I'm gonna have to ask him. You know, so, it makes me nervous sometimes, man. You know, people have met guys, other guys, you know, are making Bitcoin videos about me while they're in bed, you know. So, reason number four why you should listen to us is because people trust us. I worked with them about scam coins. I talked about OneCoin back in, as you can see at the bottom right there, where the red arrows are, on May 17, 2016. And then it wasn't until like 5 months later before the the Financial Conduct Authority in Europe, you know, announced that you shouldn't be messing with OneCoin. So if they would just follow our channel, they could have been way ahead of the game, right? Look at that face I got on that thumbnail, man. All right, I was also voted the top 13 and the top 100 most influential people in cryptocurrency, right? So there it is, reason number 5. So that's just a little bit about my background so that you guys know who I am up here. But let's go ahead and dive into what is Bitcoin, guys, right? So on the left right there, oh, by the way, I have to give credit to Robert Palatnik, the Chief Technology Architect at the DTCC. In case you guys don't know who DTCC is, they're the largest stock clearing company in America. So all the stocks that we trade in the stock market, it goes through them. So you talk about centralized, that's like heavily centralized, right? So this is one of the best slides I've seen anyone make, where it really illustrates the unique nature of Bitcoin. Right? In the past, we have a ledger of financial transactions, and as you guys can see in the left picture there, under centralized, there's one focal point in the center, and all of the people, the users around it, are connected to it. And what happens there is that one person is in control of all the financial transactions that's going on. And the next evolution is where it's decentralized, where now you have multiple of these groups that are connected together, but still there's one centralized area that's controlling the data and they share it with others. So that would be an example of like if I use Chase Bank and then someone else is using Wells Fargo and someone else is using HSBC Bank. So each one of those can represent each one of those networks and then they connect together. But still the users on the outside still have to get permission to be able to use that network, right? And now we have evolved to the point where we have these financial ledgers now where it's distributed in the last column there, where everyone is connected to each other and anyone can set up their own node and connect to another node without anyone's permission, okay? So in the world of cryptocurrencies, there's like 1,500 cryptocurrencies out there according to CoinMarketCap, but according to the CEO of Binance, I saw a video of him recently where there may be 1,500 cryptocurrencies listed on CoinMarketCap. However, he says that there's like 5,000 applications to get cryptocurrencies listed on the Binance exchange. So apparently there's more that's out there that we are not aware of, and CoinMarketCap only shows the ones that we see that are listed on the exchanges, right? So in the world of cryptocurrencies, we have on our team and our channel, cryptocurrency.market, what we do is we split up all the cryptocurrencies into what we call buckets, okay? So in the currency bucket, you would have Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, Tether, and all the baby Bitcoins would fall under that bucket, okay? And then another example would be like the distributed computing bucket, where you have cryptocurrencies such as Filecoin, MaidSafe, Golem, Storage, Saya, Gladius, like that. I made a mistake when I was trying to update the slides. I thought that the little Gladius logo was transparent, and then I went and put it on there and it covered up the rest. So I had to put it on the side. And then we got the privacy coin bucket, where we have things such as Zcash, Navcoin, Pivx, Monero, Komodo, Bullberry, Particle, and then when Bitcoin Private comes out, it'll go into that bucket as well, because it's considered to be in the privacy coin family, right? And then it can also fall in the currency too, but it's more focused on privacy, so we'll put it in that bucket, right? Now, there are several reasons, right, for businesses and individuals to use this blockchain Bitcoin technology, right? The first reason, and it's the most obvious one, is the pesky middlemen. time we make a transaction, like between me and Adib here, who's like laying real relaxed in front of everybody, right? He's like, you need a couch? All right. So between me and Adib, the Texas miner here, in the past, right, when I make a financial transaction and I need to send it to him, right, I have to go through my Chase Bank first, and then my Chase Bank notify his bank. What bank do you use? Chase. Chase. Okay. So you know, Chase, they'll notify his account, and then they'll agree on it, and then we transfer. In this case, it's because he and I use the same Chase Bank, right? That's very easy. But if he was to use like HSBC Bank or something, then my Chase Bank would have to notify his bank. They agree that the transaction is legit. I'm a real person. He's a real person to receive it, and those two pesky middlemen agree on it, and then they agree on the financial transaction, and then it gets completed, right? Now, those people, they don't do anything other than just take the money from my hand and then turn around and hand it to him, to his bank, and his bank hands it to him, right? So thanks to the blockchain and Bitcoin, we are able to eliminate the need for a middleman, all right? So most of the financial transactions that we do today, guys, we have a middleman sitting in between us, and by using the blockchain technology, we can eliminate that, right? The second use for blockchains in business and in personal people's personal lives is to be permissionless, right? So, I come from Vietnam, and if you're from Vietnam and you want to send money to somebody in America, you have to get permission from them first, from the government, to send money outside the country. So we live in America where we're so used to sending money to whoever we want that we forget that there are other countries out there in the world that cannot just send money outside of their borders, right? So that's a huge hurdle for a lot of countries, and they cannot do business with people outside their own borders unless the government gives them permission to do so. So using Bitcoin and the blockchain technology, we have a method to where we don't need permission from the government anymore to go to transact with another human being on the planet, all right? The other thing too is that it's censorship resistant, okay? If you guys are using the fiat currency, the US dollar, what happens is every time, right, the government does not like what you're doing, or the banks or the institutions, they have the ability to freeze your account. If you have used PayPal before in your business, there was a stretch there when the internet, people started doing business online, and they would just freeze people's accounts on PayPal, and there's nothing that you could do about it. Okay, so because this Bitcoin and blockchains, we don't have that issue anymore. Okay, so if a node wants to censor your transactions, you can just simply set up your own node, right, and then run the transactions yourself. All right. So reason number 4, okay, is for clearing and settlement. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you guys know that I put all my life savings, nearly all of it, into Bitcoins about 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. And when I did that, it was not because it was a currency. A lot of people think that I did it because it was going to replace the US dollar, okay? If you guys have ever been, how many of you guys have been to San Diego? Right, a lot of you? How many of you guys have heard of San Diego? See, that worked one time? You said it didn't work, it worked. It worked, didn't it? Yeah. Okay. 2 more, right? Okay, so what happened was when you go down to San Diego, they have the aircraft carrier, the USS Midway, and America is one of the few in the world that can build ships like that. They can go and just really mess up a city. Right? Like, I mean, they park that aircraft carrier outside your city by the coast. They start launching missiles and aircrafts and all that stuff. Your city's gonna be messed up, okay? And because America has about a dozen of those protecting the US dollar, I do not foresee in my lifetime, okay, Bitcoin is going to destroy the US dollar anytime soon. It might take over the Zimbabwe dollar or something like that, you know, it ain't taking over the US dollar anytime soon in my lifetime. Bitcoin, it was because of this right here. If you guys, how many of you guys have an account with like TD Ameritrade, Schwab, E-Trade, or any of those? So I used to use those services, and whenever those brokerage services, and if you buy or sell a stock and you make money on it, it typically takes about 2 weeks from the time that you sell it and make the profit until the time that you can actually use that profit to go buy a cup of coffee or some food or some burritos or some tacos or Torchy's tacos down here, okay? So because of that, right, when I first saw when my business partner and co-host on our channel, the Honorable Grandmaster, LeonFood.com. I gotta send a shout out to LeonFood.com. He's probably watching this right now. He couldn't, I got a text him that he couldn't make it, he tried to, but his daughter was just born less than like 20 hours ago. All right, so congratulations to him. So he sent his former co-worker at Dell, Rupesh, raise your hand, Rupesh, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Rupesh right there, right? Rupesh is what we would consider a badass Android software engineer, and he used to handle the Android side, and then Leon would handle the iOS side at Dell Computers, right? So he sent Rupesh here in his place, okay, to make sure I'm in place.
I'm not coming there.
Okay, so it was because of this clearing and settlement technology, guys, that I put everything into Bitcoin back then, and because of that, when Leon sent me the first fractions of a Bitcoin, I was sitting there on the phone with him, and I asked him when can I send it back out? And he said, just give it a few minutes. I said, what do you mean? And then after about 10, 12 minutes, the transaction cleared. So wait a minute. And then I sent it back to him, and he received it, and he said, I'll just give it a few minutes, and it'll confirm, and then we're good to go. And so I was sending it back and forth, and I couldn't believe that someone had invented a financial network where I can just send something to anybody. And then I asked him, I said, hey, what if I send this to somebody like in Cuba or in Vietnam or some communist country or something? Because it doesn't matter, as long as they have a phone or an internet or a laptop and they can download the Bitcoin client, they can receive it. And it just blew my mind that you can just send a financial transaction to somebody on the other side of the world, and in about 10 minutes, it would clear and settle, and they can use it and send it back out again. And I said, you know what? There's no way in the world that Wall Street is going to see this. It takes them 2 weeks to clear a transaction, and they see this clear in 10 minutes. There is no way in the world they're just going to sit on their butt and do nothing about it, right? And that's the reason why I put my life savings into it. Now, guys, that is not to be construed as financial advice. I'm just sharing you what I did back then when I first encountered Bitcoins, okay? So the fifth reason, guys, is to tokenize ownership of a business. Okay, now this is extremely important. How many of you guys have used the Exodus desktop wallet? The wallet? Okay. Here's what are you guys using over here on your desktop?
Just the core.
Miss?
Yeah.
Miss? Okay.
No,
Cool.
that's good.
Okay, cool deal. How many of you guys are not using any wallets? Okay. Hardware wallets? Okay, all right, that's good. I want to, okay, all right. So I just want to make sure. I'm like, where are you keeping your Bitcoins, in your back pocket? Okay, so tokenizing ownership of business, guys. So full disclosure, guys, we invested into the Exodus wallet. So I'm talking about it. So there's probably going to be some type of conflict of interest there because we invested into the company and we're talking about it. Okay, so back then, they just started, I think it was like 2015, early 15 or 2016. They came out, LeonFood.com showed me this wallet called Exodus. And I saw it, and I downloaded it, I opened it up, and I was like, wait a minute, this can't be for real. Either this is a joke wallet or this thing is the real deal. And I didn't have to read any tutorials, I didn't have to read any instructions. I just looked at the wallet, and I immediately knew how to use it, right? And I said, man, this is going to be the wave of the future because they had their portfolio set up, a little donut graph and everything. And I said, you know what? This is not just a Bitcoin wallet. I'll bet you these guys are going to make it so that you can manage your block cryptocurrencies inside this wallet. And back then, it only had Bitcoin, Litecoin, and I think Dogecoin, those three. And then I said, I'll bet you these guys are going to add more to it. This is going to be the wave of the future. And then we found out that they were doing a Series A fundraising. So we contributed, our team contributed to it. So we have a stake or equity in the Exodus wallet, right? But the problem is we can't do anything about it. So we know that they've gotten hundreds of thousands of users. So we know that the value of their company has gone up 10, 20, 50x probably. I don't know what it is, but I know it's way more than what we originally put in. But can we do anything about it? No, well, there's nothing we can do about it because until somebody comes and buys them out and offers money for those shares that we own in that wallet service, we just have to wait. It doesn't matter how good the company is, we cannot liquidate our shares, right? So there's companies out there right now, like Polymath, right, that are trying to tokenize businesses, the ownership of businesses, commercial buildings, hedge funds, all kinds of different financial funds.
Polymath.
Yeah, Polymath, okay? And full disclosure, guys, remember, anything I talk about, you can safely assume I have money in it, okay? So I don't know what else is, it's like my lawyer says, everything you talk about, you gotta disclose it to the public, right? So each time I say something like that, I gotta disclose it, okay? So I don't get in trouble, right? So what they're doing is, companies like that, projects like that, they're looking to tokenize it. So I want you guys to imagine this. Take this whole building right here, and let's say that they want Crown Plaza, wants to build a Crown Plaza in South Austin, and let's just say that this thing costs $1 million, just so the math is easy, right? And they decide they're gonna issue 1 million tokens for it, and then we go in, and then we take the tokens, and then we have ownership of it. So you put up $10, you own 10 tokens of it. Of this. And anytime you go into the exchanges or trade it with somebody else, you don't have to wait for somebody to come in and buy the whole project out for you to profit or benefit from the tokens that you own, the shares that you own in this, the portion that you own in this hotel when they build it. So that right there, I believe, is going to be the next big thing in cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, is the ability for business owners, funds, financial firms to tokenize their projects, whether it's a tangible asset such as a building like this, or it can just be a financial product. So keep an eye out for those things like that, okay? And then there's other projects such as like T0 that's being started by Patrick Byrne from Overstock.com, and they're taking these businesses that are tokenizing it, and then they're allowing it to be traded on their exchange, okay? So now this is reason number 6. For using blockchains, guys, and Bitcoin, this is probably the #1 reason that, matter of fact, this is the reason why I helped to sponsor this event and put this event together, is because of this reason right here. So I believe, and not just me, but everyone on our team believes that with the invention of Bitcoin and especially with Bitcoin private, now that Rhett is adding the Zcash technology, the privacy technology to it, and what I believe and our team believes is that having the ability to have a private financial transaction is so important, okay? When I make a transaction with Adib right here and I give him some cash, no one has to know about it. I give it to him, unless he tells somebody, the only 2 people that knows about it is the sender and the receiver. But right now, the way that our financial system is set up is designed so that every time we make an electronic transaction online, the government knows about it, the institutions know about it, and then if we send a transaction that's more than $10,000, then they have to notify all kinds of regulators, all kinds of financial institutions, right? And I don't like that. I don't like that. I recently got a call from a financial institution, right? And they were asking me if I was interested in taking some of the money that I had in my account and investing it into different products and services that they offered, And I did not like the fact, the conversation was okay until they mentioned that yeah, we noticed that, you have all these incoming transactions from Coinbase, right? Now, how do you feel about that when somebody throws something like that out there at you? Right? Me personally, right? I grew up in east of Houston, right? Near Louisiana. I do the projects out there. And one of the things that we do in the projects, we don't like it when somebody knows how much money we got. Right? You don't go up to somebody randomly in the projects or in the hood and ask somebody, hey man, how much money you got, bro? Right? It's none of your damn business. That's how much I got. Okay? So what happens here, guys, and the reason why we don't want somebody to know how much money we have or how much we're making is because somebody can come with that baseball bat and threaten us. Right? The guys that got robbed in the projects, guess why they got robbed? It's because everybody knew they had money. Right? If nobody knows you have money, or nobody knows how much you're transacting, can they come with the baseball bat and threaten you? You know how all these cryptographers, and they say, oh, this is, uncrackable, you need some quantum computer to crack it. No, you don't. I have some friends in very low places that have a baseball bat, and they'll come crack that private key very quick. Okay, so I'm gonna not go too much into these threats and bribes. We actually brought a Reegan. Please raise your hand, Reegan. Say hello to Reegan, everyone. Right? So Reegan is our lead privacy advocate, on our channel and our team. We have such a strong belief on this, guys. Me and Leon, we do the trading and investing on our channel. We talk about that all the time. But we have such a strong belief in a person's privacy rights that we brought Reegan on full time to just broadcast about privacy. And I'm really honored to have her on our team, and she's the lead privacy advocate for Bitcoin Private. It's something that she believes in already, so it's a very natural process for her to transition into that role. Okay, so we'll leave. Jake asked me to leave the Q&A at the end. Correct? All right. How many of you guys have seen Q&A before? It wasn't that good that time. Okay, so we have
Jake is next.
Jake. Okay, you're next, right? Okay.
You could have done it up on the screen.
Oh, if you guys want to follow us, there we are at cryptocurrency.market/newsletter. And then that's my Twitter. And that's leonfu.com's Twitter right there. Okay. All right, guys. While they're pulling up the presentation, guys, I want to share with you guys something that that I just found out about this in the last few days, guys, last couple of weeks. So your next speaker is going to be Jake right here. He's the operations lead for Bitcoin Private. And guys, I'll be honest with you guys about this, okay? I have never seen somebody work so hard, guys. I am honored, that someone like Jake is working as the operations, lead for Bitcoin Private. I have personally witnessed him as he's sitting there on Discord, managing multiple, fires, putting out fires on the Discord about people setting up the Electrum wallet, all kinds of stuff. Meanwhile, being able to mentally hold that over here and then be able to arrange all this in here and set up this, set up projectors and answer everybody's text messages while he was in here setting up. Calls were coming in, and I spent a few days with you now?
It's Friday.
Since Friday, and his phone is ringing nonstop from people that he's working with in the Bitcoin Private. I've never seen him stressed out. I've never seen him lose his cool. Matter of fact, I have worked with several, what I consider to be high-level, chief operations officers in other companies before. Operate at the level that he is. Okay, everybody give a hand. For one individual to be able to maintain all those activities going on in their head, and then I would just tell them, hey man, what about this, and he'd be able to answer it, right? And then, hey man, I'm stuck with this, and he goes, try this over here, and then he's back on the phone talking to somebody else, giving them other solutions to that. And I've never seen somebody put out fires that fast or be able to come up. We need somebody that can solve problems, guys, right? When I read through the Discord, I'm looking behind his shoulders and I see people just listing problems. Hey, we have a problem with this. Hey, this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, And I don't see him putting any of that garbage in there. What he's putting back is solutions. What Bitcoin Private needs is more people like Jake on the team to contribute, to volunteer, guys. People that come up with solutions quick and fast and not afraid to make mistakes and try something new. So it is an honor for me, guys, to introduce you guys to Jake from Detroit here. Come on up, buddy.
I was just saying that I'm watching the live stream fail like 3 times and try and get it back on. So hopefully it doesn't happen while I'm up here. Thank you, Ty. That was a wonderful introduction. Just to give you guys a little bit about who I am. I graduated in August with a PhD in chemistry, and I seriously have no idea how I'm standing here right now. So it's a much different world than the chemistry world, but I love it. I love every minute of it. So I'm really glad to be here. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Bitcoin Private, kind of my thoughts on why this is important, right? So we all know that cryptocurrency has gone mainstream. There are so many different companies that are using this as currency now, right? Microsoft, they were using it, then they stopped using it, and then they started using it again. So they're back in. Bloomberg, Braintree from PayPal. There's just so many. My personal favorite is I can go to Canada and buy KFC. That's awesome. I live like 10 minutes from Canada, so I really have to go and do that. And then there's just so many more. All of these companies are now accepting it. It's just fantastic. I can go to OkCupid and sign up and get dates. I don't need to, but I can. That's awesome. So we all know one of the reasons why this is great. Part of Satoshi's vision was something that had less inflation, right? Or at least controlled inflation. We all know how much Bitcoin is going to be made. We know at what rate it's going to inflate, and we have no idea what's going on with US dollars or other fiat currencies. They're made and burned or whatever, whenever the government feels like doing it, right? I'm not saying that the government's bad, I'm just saying that it's nice to have the cost of a currency in our hands rather than controlled by, invisible hands. Obviously, it's better security. I mean, you all know, if you're all here, you probably all know that the blockchain has unbelievable security. It's the best on the market, best cryptography on the market. So I'm not even going to spend that much time on this slide. And all of this really allows you to have financial freedom, right? You have fantastic security. You don't have to worry about your currency being manipulated in a way, if you take, for example, a US dollar I hold today is worth less tomorrow and worth less the next day. But if I have Bitcoin, I mean, it might be worth 100% less tomorrow, but then hopefully it's worth 1,000% more the day after that, right? I'm sure we've all been through it at least once or twice. So, and that allows more financial freedom, right? We have more control, and that's fantastic. We should have more control over our lives. And we all know that Bitcoin is the king. I mean, let's be realistic. It's the first. It has the most pairs. You can go and trade with it. It's the king, and everybody knows it. Nobody is just, well, a few people dispute that, right? They're trying to replace it, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be like that anytime soon. But maybe eventually. I kind of like to liken it to, cars, right? Why would I go around, sure, Model T or, Ford's Model T was like the first car, right? But why would I drive that when I could go buy a Tesla right now? It doesn't make any sense, right? I can drive a really fast Tesla, or what everyone likes to talk about, Lambos in the crypto world, instead of a Model T. Why would I do that? And we all know how fast technology moves now, right? Like 60 years, the amount of technology that we get over 60 years, like 100 years ago, happens in like a week now. So it moves really quickly. There are really high fees. We've all experienced this. I mean, come on, I've had at least once or twice where, you try to send like $300 worth of Bitcoin and it costs you 15 bucks. But what if I'm a business and I want to sell something that's $5 and it costs me $15 to sell it? I just lost money because I wanted to use Bitcoin. That's not really financial freedom, right? So, and back to the slow thing, how many of you have had, for instance, an exchange take 3 hours for Bitcoin to get to it? I know I am. Raise your hand if you're one of those people. Wallet to wallet, sometimes over an hour. I mean, it's absolutely absurd when there are other technologies that take just a couple minutes. So, things, right? And then, of course, not very much privacy related with this. Well, there used to be. That was the original vision, right? Was to have privacy, to be able to spend digital money without being tracked by banks, institutions, etc. That you could do this and feel free and feel safe. But lately, it's been mostly de-anonymized, or at least some percentage of it has, right? So they can find a way to track you. Now, it's not necessarily easy, but every year it gets easier. Every day it gets easier. So can we find something, or can we use a technology that isn't susceptible to that? And that goes back to just talking about privacy in general. We all have the right to privacy and the right to safety. I strongly believe in it. I think our entire team strongly believes in it, and that's exactly why we're a part of this project. So, well, why do we need privacy? One of the reasons I like to say is protection from hackers, particularly in the crypto sphere, right? I mean, if you have funds stored on a wallet, and they can hack your computer, they can find it and they can take it, right? But if they already knew your address somehow, they can check it and see if it's worthwhile in order to do that. But if you're on a private ledger or you have actual privacy, they have no way of seeing what you have on a public ledger, right? So I like to think we got protection from hackers, more so than what Ty was talking about earlier. Right? I'm not going to get into that just because he already spoke about it. Everyone always says that privacy is only for criminals and terrorists. I do not agree with this statement. How many people in here agree with that statement? You got one. All right, maybe two. Only for criminals and terrorists, right? I am not a criminal or a terrorist. Yeah, so did everyone hear that?
No.
Said if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear.
Thank you, Hitler.
Yeah. I don't really believe in that. Ben Franklin once said to us that they who can give up an essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. The instant you're willing to give up any of your liberties or freedoms, you deserve them. And you also don't necessarily, everyone deserves safety. I'm not going to support necessarily that, but you probably won't get safety in that case, right? Back at the fantastic book 1984, right? Where everyone just gets watched. They've lost everything at that point.
But even like another great example is with Apple and the FBI. Like,
Yeah.
They didn't want to give away a backdoor.
Yeah, and that was great. I mean, they wanted to give the FBI just a, hey, yeah, we'll unlock this one phone for you. And I would be fine with that, right? I mean, I was obviously a terrorist, but they weren't going to give them a backdoor to every single phone out there.
But then the FBI ended up making a backdoor.
Yeah.
And then, cool, and then someone hacked the FBI and got those backdoors and then used that.
Yeah,
So then it's like.
exactly. And it's a fantastic point, Mark. So,
Exactly what Apple didn't want to happen.
yeah, and it could happen. So then they had to patch it, right? And then they fix it, and then we're going to start all over again. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, and it's inevitable. I mean, people will argue too that how do you know that it's going to be private forever? I mean, it's private until someone proves it's not. It's an unfortunate reality, but at least we can run with it until it's proven otherwise, right? And this is why you should, or at least what I believe in, is give me liberty or give me death, right? I don't want to live in a world without liberty. This is what we've been given at this point. And it's a privilege, don't get me wrong. I feel fantastic. I love the fact that I'm able to have this. But that doesn't mean, I'd rather die than not have it, especially having been raised with it. So that will actually get into what Bitcoin private is. I'll stop preaching on my soapbox now and start to tell you what I'm actually trying to sell you, right? Not sell you, sorry. Market to you. I don't sell anything. I should probably give a Tizen disclaimer. I am, however, modestly invested in this project. So, so we're a fork from ZClassic and Bitcoin. This was Rhett's idea. I remember the day that I found out about it. I was just kind of hanging out with ZClassic Telegram. I had no idea what was going on, and he just said, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I need volunteers," and now I'm operations lead. So weird things happen from time to time. It's a fantastic idea. No one's ever really thought of this, and there's a lot that goes on to it. Ty said it best yesterday when we were at Crypto in Frisco, actually, which is one of the major reasons why this is so cool is because we're able to bring two completely separate communities together. Maybe there's some overlap, but two completely separate communities together into one fantastic coin. So why should I choose Bitcoin private over Bitcoin or other Bitcoin forks? 4 to 6 times faster. The transaction speed or block speed is around 2.5 minutes on average. That's fantastic. I mean, literally, I'll send my funds from one wallet to the next or to an exchange, and I can see it pending almost instantaneously, and then I see it within, usually it's under 2 minutes confirmed, and then I can move it around again. It's unbelievable how fast it is. Extremely low fees, the block size is double. It's 2 megabytes instead of 1. It makes it a lot better than your typical 1 megabyte block size on Bitcoin. It's community driven. We have something like over 100 people contributing to this. It can be a little bit hectic at times, but I think we have an effective management and organization now that's really running very smoothly. And I love this part. And people say that it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I can go out any day and say, listen, we need someone who's better at doing this. Like yesterday or the day before, we needed someone to make a Docker image for us. And I just went out on Twitter and said, hey, we need an expert in this. It'll take us a few hours to get it done, but an expert should be done in 30 minutes or something like that. I had like 20 people message me in minutes, and then we got it done in half the amount of time that would have normally taken us, right? And they'll complain, well, why don't we already have those people? And because we're a community, we do have those people. I just have to find them. That's all it really is. We're decentralized, very decentralized, given that we just keep adding new developers. By the way, I'm supposed to shout out the developers. You guys have been doing an amazing job. Love you guys with the Electrum wallet, getting up that mining pool, everything. They've been unbelievable. Let's give a round of applause for them. Honestly, I don't know how we ended up with such a fantastic group of developers that are just donating their time to us. They're just unbelievable, and I love everyone. I like to think we have a transparent governance. We just set it up, right? I mean, it's just starting. There's 5 of us. We're all publicly known, every single one of us. And it's set up in a way that 5 of us have control of the wallet through a multi-sig. And all 5 of us have to agree to send those funds out. And basically, we can request to the community, hey, should we spend these funds? And then we can discuss among ourselves and vote on it. Tell everyone where those funds are going. It's just started. We actually haven't spent anything yet, so you'll see that process in action in the future. And then, of course, we have ZK Snark's privacy protocol. Now, I'm sure Rhett will tell you about it later, so I won't tell you much about it, other than the fact that I think it's the best privacy protocol out there. The private ledger is completely invisible, so you can send funds to and from those Z addresses, and you cannot see that on the public ledger. It's really a fantastic privacy protocol. Other privacy coins, I'm just going to compare with other Z protocol coins because I really do think that that's the best privacy protocol. Now, I'm sure I could argue for days with other people about that, but it would take way too long for me to compare with every single privacy coin out there. So right now, there's 3, what I call 3 major other Z protocol forks. First one is Zcash. There's some speculation. It was pretty much not proven, but it has been speculated. What I like to call a chorus tax. They call it a founder's tax. Either way, I think it's just a terrible name. And they basically have, like, I think it's, I don't know, their development team is rather small, kind of centralized, so a lot of funds in very few people's hands, right? Fairly low transparency. I try and look up what they're doing all the time, and it seems like it can be really hard to figure out what's going on. So, and really high inflation at the moment. There's still something like 18 million coins that need to be mined out of 21 million, so that's a lot of inflation over the next few years, right? Zencash, this was actually, so ZClassic is a fork from Zcash, Zencash is a fork from ZClassic, so a fork of a fork. Just like, I guess, Bitcoin private would be a fork of a fork and then a fork of Bitcoin. So I think they kind of have a course tax. It's not, it's a little bit more transparent, I think. The dev is less centralized. Like I said, it still think more transparent than Zcash is, and it still has that really high inflation. Now, ZClassic has that same really high inflation too. Then Komodo, but not the lizard, the coin. It has a really significant pre-mine. They were an ICO, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, there's a lot of really great ICOs out there. There's also a lot that are complete scams, like everyone knows BitConnect, right? Hopefully no one in here was scammed by BitConnect.
Oh man, they're great.
Yeah, I have everything. All I use is BitConnect. That's it.
Yeah.
That's my referral link.
Okay. Really high inflation. There's something like 100 million coins left to mine. And so, how do we compare with ours? We've already talked about these things these 3 things that I think are fantastic about our project. We have no pre-mine. There is no course tax, and we have Bitcoin brand recognition. I mean, let's not deny the fact that this matters, and bringing that community in, having that brand recognition, it matters, it's important, right? That's a huge community. It's the largest community out of any coin is Bitcoin. So bringing that community in instantaneously is a huge advantage. What are we working on before the fork happens? This is kind of how I see it. I kind of reworked this a little bit this morning, so it's not 100% official yet. We're going to re-release again tomorrow with some updated things and maybe some dates. To release the ZClassic shielded Electrum wallet. We did transparent. You probably saw that come out yesterday. It works amazingly. There's maybe 1 or 2 issues that have been reported on Mac, I think, but for Windows, it works 100% of the time. Really proud of our developers. Done. Bitcoin private Electrum wallet. Apparently then the fork comes because I messed up my animations. We have to release a white paper, finish our volunteer miner contribution program, which I'll tell you about next. And then we'll do the snapshot, and then the fork will follow the snapshot, okay? It won't come after the wallet. And so I just wanted to tell you about this voluntary miner contribution program. I think it's fantastic. It's really interesting, and we need more people to jump in. It just grew exponentially. I mean, it went literally yesterday. We had about 1 megahash per second on this program, and as of today, we're up to 9. So it's growing exponentially. If you're a miner, come talk to me about it afterwards. If you want to know more, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it now. 1.25 Bitcoin private per ZClassic at the moment. So if you go in, we're trying to raise about 50,000 ZClassic. And at the end, we'll create 62.5 thousand Bitcoin private at the fork and hand that back to the miners who mined and contributed to us, okay? So basically, it's an exchange for hash power. Some people might call this a pre-mine. I don't think it's a pre-mine when we're giving the funds back to the mining community. They were gonna mine it anyways, right? So how is that considered a pre-mine? I would disagree. We need funding, and we need that for exchanges, development, marketing, and just general and administrative costs that any kind of organization has to pay for. And this is why we launched this program. So if you're interested in it, go to this website, fund.zclassic.org. And again, just come and ask me if you want to know more about it. I think it's a fantastic program. You're going to get more Bitcoin. If you were planning on holding through the fork, you're going to get more Bitcoin private at the end. So afterwards. So, and we had a bug in it where it wasn't showing how much Bitcoin private you had earned. It was just fixed a couple hours ago. So now everything's running really smoothly. I highly recommend getting on there and helping us out. It would mean a lot to us, and it would mean a lot to Bitcoin private and the team and all of the developers and marketers and everyone who's been working tirelessly for no pay whatsoever. So with that, I'm just going to show off our team a little bit. Rhett, myself, Giuseppe, who's just been amazing at marketing. I mean, he's taken the whole marketing program on his back. I call him, we talk on the phone like 20 times a day. It's getting actually kind of out of control. And we have a huge team. This isn't even all the team. I mean, our community is amazing with over 70 people. I mentioned that before. There's a lot of people on here. This was, since the last time I did this, we already updated it again with more people. So everyone's allowed to get their name and face on there if they've contributed to a certain extent. And this list is just growing. I honestly think we're one of the best teams out. We're doing so well for what we are, a team of volunteers, literally. So maybe we can give a round of applause again for everyone who volunteered their time. So with that, I just like to say thank you, and we're not taking questions. We're going to go right to the next talk, which is Reegan Lessie. So why don't we give her a round of applause and welcome her to the stage.
Hi guys, how's it going tonight?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. All right, so he's getting my slides up. Yeah, we could
Check the clicker.
So my name is Reegan Lessie. I am a privacy advocate, and I'm really honored to be here and be a part of the Bitcoin private community and sharing my thoughts on privacy with all of you. I am a small business owner. I live in San Diego, California, and I own a yoga studio as well as a coffee shop. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a believer that we all have the right to privacy and security. So our founding fathers, they wrote this into our Constitution. It's in the Fourth Amendment. And so the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and persons or things to be seized. So it's written, you know, we have the right to privacy, and we're all here to talk about privacy. It's really wonderful to talk to you all online. It was a really warm welcome, and telling me to move over. So why do you need privacy? Privacy allows you the freedom to express an idea or an opinion as an individual without the threat of physical harm or negative repercussions. So this is really important. You know, we have the right to believe what we believe, and we have the right to state that. Assembly and express an idea or an opinion as a group with the threat of harm or negative, without the threat of physical harm or negative repercussions. So here we are today. You know, we're here, we're meeting, we're talking about Bitcoin private, and we have that right. And then the freedom to report on illegal activities in business and government. Businesses need privacy for protection, such as trade secrets from criminal hackers and competitors. So again, the right to assemble, nonviolence. Privacy enables consumer protection. So without privacy, it's easy for someone else to impersonate you, especially online. I think everybody's dealt with fraud. I'm sure if I asked for a raise of hands, pretty much everybody would put their hands up. And ID theft. You know, there's a lot of that going on. I was reading recently, even children, their IDs taken, and you know, they don't even know it. And so then when they start to become adults and start to get into having credit, they realize their credit reports are, you know, a mess, and that's a huge issue, which then creates credit reporting that, you know, they have a bad credit report. So then that, you know, reflects upon how they can purchase things, and you know, our freedom to make a private purchase is really important as well. The statement where, you know, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. I think that comes from, you know, you can only understand from your own level of perception. So if you've never had your privacy violated, then you might not understand that. And, you know, maybe I don't want my credit card to reflect, you know, buying wine or going to the doctor. And that should be my right. So we have a secret ballot. Everywhere we vote privately. Secret ballot, there's no husbands, there are no wives that go in there. We have no friends that go in there, no receipts. This goes back to the 4th century BC. Even Aristotle talks about this. How important it is that we have a secret ballot. It's a secret ballot. And it's a crucial part of our democracy. The secret ballot ensures free and fair elections. Only the voter knows how they have voted. So nobody can threaten you for your vote. Nobody can tell you to vote a certain way. But, you know, something happened in the 70s. I'm not sure if you guys have watched any of James D'Angelo's YouTube videos. If you haven't, I highly recommend him. He's a privacy advocate, and he talks a lot about our and how the heart of our democracy votes transparently. So this really gives an opportunity for bribes and threats, you know, or excuse me, bribes specifically. Being transparent allows politicians to sell their votes. So, you know, they might not be getting money right then and there when they're congressmen, but what we see in history is after they are congressmen or women, they often get hired by big business companies to then come in and consult and do things like that. So in the Legislative Reorganization Act of October 26, 1970, the way our Congress voted opens the door for bribery and corruption. This was really a different way that they voted. So in the 70s, before that, when Congress would vote, a lot of times they would go into the committee of the whole. And when they would do that, it was not recorded. It was not really known how they were voting. And I think it was about 1973, they spent like $1 million, and they put these electronic registers for the way that our Congress people vote, and it was recorded. Prior to that, the recording just took too long. So they didn't do it, or everybody would stand up, and then, you know, if it wasn't unanimous or if it was kind of close, they would count it. But the name and the vote wasn't really put out, you know, it wasn't recorded. But once they did this, they really started to then see a change. And again, I highly recommend you go look at his YouTube videos. He'll talk about how that's affected us in business in so many ways. It's pretty amazing. picture of Congress. Nothing to hide, nothing to fear, myth. Freedom to express your ideas and opinions is threatened. Freedom to associate with other people is threatened. Freedom to assemble and unite with other people is threatened. The effects of no privacy are you will think twice about connecting or meeting specific types of people. We have a freedom of association. Congregate in the same location with a specific type of people, freedom of assembly. Participating in activities with a specific type of people that might make you look bad. And the result is having a chilling effect on our well-functioning democracy, activism, journalism, political dissent. We're seeing it happening every day. You're just really, and the thing is that, like I said before, we only understand from our own level of perception. So if you haven't been through it, then how can you understand why that person would need their privacy, a way to get out of a difficult situation? And freedom implies learning, curiosity, inquiry, and we need privacy because we act differently than we're under surveillance. People feel a loss of control when they know they're being watched and an increase in anxiety. So I recently had to deal with some personal, my privacy was violated, and it was a really uncomfortable feeling, but the thing was that I let control of the information about myself go. Like I didn't have control of that information. And this is a definition of privacy. Privacy is the control over the information that is out there about you. So if we don't know that our information out there has even been hacked or anything like that, then how do we have control over the information that is out there? So security plus privacy. Arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. So that is a really well said statement. Edward Snowden said that. Widespread police surveillance is definitely, definition of of police state, champion privacy even when we have nothing to hide. Did you guys see that ICE is now taking pictures of all of our license plates? Yeah, and yeah, they have been, but now they have a private contract, and they claim that they're not gonna, keep that information or anything.
Right. They're just gonna sell it.
Yeah, exactly. I listened to the podcast. It's called Note to Self. Has anybody heard of that podcast? Manoush Samarodi, she's a big privacy advocate. She even has a 5-day plan where you can take back the information that's online about you. I just started it, since I've been traveling, I'm a little bit behind, but it's pretty scary when you start to look at how so many places you're being watched. So she says, somewhere along the way, we struck a bargain and we didn't even realize it. We started trading free apps and services for our personal information, and the government decided in order to keep us safe, information too. Okay, so challenges to defending your privacy. According to Privacy International, the most significant challenge to privacy is that the right can be compromised without the individual being aware of it. With other rights, you're aware of the interference of violations. So like when you're being detained, when you're being censored, like on our YouTube channel, Cryptocurrency Market, when YouTube decides to take one of our videos down, they let us know that they've censored that video. And in other words, with other rights, you're always fully aware of the person violating your rights. However, when your privacy rights are being violated, you are not informed about the monitoring you are placed under. You are not given the opportunity to question the violations, and most people are not capable of doing anything about the violation.
Yeah.
Communication versus financial privacy. Privacy allows you to freely share, transfer, and extend your reach and influence over a long distance, two distinct ways. communication privacy, and financial privacy. Standard communication privacy, such as human messengers, calls and text messages, snail mail, or email, and allows you to create an extension of who you are to share, transfer, and extend your ideas and beliefs to the other side of the world. Money is speech. The money in my pocket is the same as the money in your pocket. So this is a really important factor here. I think we're all here to, support privacy and also the fact that the way that you spend your money is your own personal privacy. It's your own right. So the importance of financial privacy, on the other hand, financial privacy allows you to share, transfer, and extend your value. So you can put your money where your mouth is. Financial privacy is crucial to extending your reach and spreading your ideas and beliefs over long distances. And anyone who controls financial privacy has the ability to control your ability to spread your ideas and beliefs over long distances. Reasons to take away your financial privacy. So individuals want to take away your financial privacy so they have a competitive edge over you. And governments want to take away your financial privacy so they can maintain power and control over its citizens. Businesses want to take away your financial privacy so they know what you like to buy so they can assist their advertisers to sell you more stuff. I think I think things sometimes and then I go on Facebook and there's like commercials on the side. Has anybody experienced that? Even last night we were talking about chickens. I know that sounds weird, but we were, and like on the TV, all of a sudden there were chickens. I think that was a coincidence, but I don't know. Like we all were really interesting. So yeah, this current technology allows for mass surveillance that was unimaginable before. At my coffee shop, we have that point of sale, and there's a camera on them. I didn't even know that. I was like, oh my goodness. So it's like everywhere. So why Bitcoin private? Leon Fu, he posted this on Twitter the other day, and I thought it was quite appropriate. People want money that is A, independent of their country, government, or corporation like B, anonymous and censorship resistant like cash, and C, can move assets across the world like Bankwire and PayPal, all free, and will take over the world's money. So going back to its original intent for Bitcoin, privacy. So that was my speech. Thank you all for listening. I'll let Jake.
Leon here?
So, like I said, no, Leon's not gonna be here because his
Got it.
daughter Lily was just born. Like,
No, I just wasn't sure if he was gonna come or not. Okay.
No, I tried to strong arm him to come. I told him that Bitcoin private's more important, but he said, no, Lily's more important.
Fair enough.
Hey,
Look, if you have a kid, all right, there's one thing that comes before Bitcoin private, it's your children, okay?
I would have been here.
I'm fine with that. Your poor wife. All right, well, Rhett, you have a lot of time to talk. So our founder, creator of ZClassic and Bitcoin Private, please welcome Rhett Creighton to the stage.
Wow, hi everyone. This is, this right here is really overwhelming just to see everyone right here. And I guess I have another announcement that is a little bit overwhelming. We created this voluntary miner fund pool because we are a community-driven, decentralized project, and it's always been 100% purely mined coins. So when I created ZClassic, I didn't get any for free for making it. I made some source code. And I went on a Bitcoin talk and I said, hey, you guys can mine this if you want, right? And so a lot of other projects have community funds set aside to pay all these centralized service providers like exchanges and wallets for partnerships and things. We all want Bitcoin private and ZClassic to succeed in the future. We want them to be the best possible projects that they can be. So we created this voluntary miner pool fund where miners can actually contribute to the basically ZClassic that will get donated to be used by a group of individuals to help create partnerships with centralized services and products. And yesterday, it was mining at about 1% of the total hash rate of ZClassic. And I just checked in about the past hour, it's jumped to about 18% of the total mining hash rate of ZClassic. So, I mean, I guess we can get a round of applause for that. That's just one of the things that, like, I didn't know if that would come together. I had no idea. It was an experiment, and it looked like it was at 1%, and yesterday it was kind of like, well, you know, it is what it is. And jumping to 18%, and it's probably going to keep increasing. It shows how much community support there is for this long term. And so I'm going to talk about the history of ZClassic and what you're really going to see. I mean, you start getting into history, you're going to just see how incredibly fast this all kind of came together. Well, okay, so first I want to start with Ralph Merkle. So I guess I'd really like to see, like, raise your hand if you don't know who Ralph Merkle is. There's just, okay, there's a lot of people, like, raise them high. I want to see everyone who doesn't know who Ralph, okay, you all be, so if there's one thing.
Merkle tree.
Exactly, if there's one thing that we walk away from this talk, you all will now know who Ralph Merkle is, okay? So who is Ralph Merkle? Well, he, in 1979, he patented this data structure. It's called Merkle tree. And it is the data structure that is used in Bitcoin for the blockchain. So you have this thing, if you look at a block explorer, there's a Merkle group, okay, and I highlighted it in pink. And that hash is when people talk about the Bitcoin blockchain is immutable and you can't go back and change history, and there was a big talking point for a long time. That is all because it's all secured by that Merkle group, which is part of the Merkle graph data structure that Ralph Merkle invented, right? But Bitcoin was not actually the first application to use this data structure. So when people talk about blockchains, in my mind, I think, well, that's really, you're describing this data structure, this Merkle group data structure, right? But we had this data structure with Git in 2005. So Linus Torvalds understood that he needed a data structure to secure the code of the Linux kernel, because that was actually securing billions and billions of dollars worth of computers all around the world, right? So he also used a Merkle tree data structure, and that commit also guarantees the immutability of the entire commit history of all of the Linux kernel history before it. So it's very important, right? But while Ralph was actually working on and inventing this Merkle tree data structure, he was not very well known for his work. In fact, Ralph Merkle was best known for being the nephew of Fred Merkle. Okay, so this is Ralph Merkle's uncle, Fred Merkle. Has anyone here ever heard of Fred Merkle? So it was kind of a long time ago. Okay, so you haven't heard of Fred Merkle. Well, Fred Merkle is really famous for not stepping on second base, is what he was famous for. And so it was actually, it was a 1908 pennant race. So I'm going to go into a baseball analogy here. I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. It's going to be, if anyone, I don't know if you like or dislike baseball analogies, but
I was talking about winning.
I'm going to do this baseball analogy, and it kind of ties together. So Fred Merkle was in 1908. He played for the Giants. It was a pennant race, and it was actually his rookie season, and it was his first game of the whole season. He was substituted in. He was on first base. There was a runner on first and third, and it was a tie game, bottom of the ninth. And his teammate gets a hit, right? And the runner on third base comes home, and Fred Merkle, remember, he's on first base, so he's running up to second. The runner comes home, tags home plate. The fans go nuts. Everyone runs onto the field, right? Everyone's celebrating. They won the game. Then Fred runs into the fans. He's celebrating, right? And then the players in the Cubs, they realized that he never touched second base, right? So what they did is this was him. There's the hit, and he's running for second base, right? And then all the fans like run onto the field, and so the players in the Cubs, they have to go and they have to fight some fans to get the ball, right? and they bring the ball back like minutes later. They bring an umpire over, and all the fans are on the field. And the umpire looks and he's like, "Yeah, he's out." And if Fred is out, it's a forced play. They take the run, right? And so there were, newspapers that call it Boner, right? Merkel closed the and this was what he was known for. Okay, his whole life, and in fact, he never lived it down. 40 years later. It wasn't just 40 years later till the day he died. His whole career, all anyone knew was that he was the guy that didn't step on second base, and that was all people knew about Ralph Merkel, nephew of the guy that didn't step on second base one time. Okay. Right? This is what he was famous for. And he's finally, now he's basically like invented the blockchain. And so hopefully I think he's famous for a few more things. We all owe him a debt for being a little bit more than the nephew of the guy who didn't step on second base. But I think about this is kind of interesting how this ties together. What does this mean, right? Well, don't be like Fred, okay? And what I mean by that is you have to make sure, what are we doing here? We're all controlling our own private keys. I messed this up in the past, but you have to make sure your private keys, because you are controlling your own money, and they have to be secure, and they have to be available, okay? If you lose a private key, it's super secure, right? No one's gonna get it but it's not available. So you have to make sure they're both things. And if you don't do these things, if you don't go the whole way and step on second base, right, and make sure that your private keys are secure and available for your own money that you're controlling, it will haunt you for the rest of your life, and it will haunt your descendants as well. Okay, just like Fred and Ralph Merkel. So, all right, that's the baseball analogy. We take like a 7-inning stretch here. So I want to get into, I have this theory of crypto economics, and because when people say blockchain, I just think of the data structure, right? And I think that what we're all doing is a little bit more than just the blockchain, the Merkle tree data structure. And there are really these three pieces of technology, I think, that we're tying together in crypto economics. And we've all probably heard of them in some way. One of them is just the public and private key pairs, right? So we have Diffie-Hellman public-private keys. That's been around since the 70s. Peer-to-peer networking, right? We had BitTorrent and other types of peer-to-peer networking long before Bitcoin. And then we have these Merkle data structures. And this includes, so DAGs you may have heard of, it's basically the generalized form of a Merkle data structure. It's called a directed acyclic graph, and then you can call them, say, Merkle chains or Merkle trees. The real innovation, I would say that one of the most innovative parts of Bitcoin originally was actually what we call today as Nakamoto consensus. And that was really just this, of these three pieces, right? We didn't really innovate on the public and private keys. We didn't really innovate on this blockchain or the Merkle data structure, right? That was already invented. It kind of fell more under bullet point 2, the peer-to-peer networking Nakamoto consensus algorithm with proof of work mining that was kind of introduced. And so, yeah, these are kind of, I guess, the three, when I think about a coin right now, I think about these three pieces of technology and how do things fit together here. And with Bitcoin private, what we're actually able to do, if you look at data structure that already exists in Bitcoin. We have this distributed ledger, right, that everyone has access to. It's been replicated thousands of times all around the world, the Bitcoin blockchain. And we can actually, anyone can download that ledger and read it permissionlessly. And we can actually into our own peer-to-peer network and technology in ZClassic. So we can take this data set and then include that into all of the network with all of our technology, right? And then we're bringing all of the people who are participants in that data set and that ledger. And so that's really, in sort of the simplest terms, what Bitcoin Private is doing. So yeah, I want to kind of just start talking about the history. I mean, this was something I didn't really expect. I changed his name. This was just one example. Somebody introduced himself to me, told me he was from Iran. I had never met him, and this was almost about a year ago. And he said, "Oh, myself and all of my friends, we all mine ZClassic." And I had just launched ZClassic, but I mean, I wasn't really involved with it. I didn't mine it, and I was kind of shocked to hear someone say they knew of me and they mine ZClassic on a daily basis in Iran. And I said, why do you mine ZClassic? And he told me that he's already lived through an event where everything he'd ever owned in his whole life has been, all of his wealth and his friends has been confiscated. And so the idea that when he tells people that you can mine ZClassic and you can hold that on a private key that you hold yourself that no one can take away, it's world changing to these people. And it's really it's really hard to understand that coming from, we're also privileged in the United States, and I don't feel like I live under that threat, and I've never lived through some kind of, my father and grandfather haven't lived through some kind of event where all of their wealth has been confiscated. And we're really lucky, but there are people all around the world that are mining ZClassic and other crypto coins because this is a really powerful idea to them. And it's right. So this is what he says. He tells people you can hold your own private keys, and it changes everything. And then so I asked him, well, why do you guys mine ZClassic? Why don't you mine Bitcoin or something instead, right? And he said, well, we can't import the Chinese mining hardware. It's just impossible to get it. So they can only get access to the generic GPU cards to mine. And so we all know that privacy is a big reason why we're all here, but there are all these other benefits to the ZClassic and Bitcoin private community. And one of them just happens to be that the mining algorithm is really friendly to generic GPU cards, right? So what that means is it gives access to people all over the world, people who can't maybe import specialized mining hardware from China or other places. And then I said, well, why don't you guys mine Zcash, right? Zcash is bigger, and said, why do you mine ZClassic and Zcash? And he said, they don't want to pay this 20% tax. They're just, they recognize that's not something that they want to be a part of, and they don't want to support a number of individuals that are getting 20% of this.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, so you're asking what I mean. So there's a question here for those of you who aren't familiar exactly what ZClassic is and why I was motivated to make it. So I guess it was November 2016. I actually went to an event in San Francisco with Zuko, the founder of Zcash, and they had just up their private their ceremony for their trusted setup for Zcash, and they explained what Zcash was, and basically, it was the Bitcoin with much better privacy technology, and there were a small number of individuals that in that project. It was actually a corporation. It's a U.S. Delaware C Corp, the Zero Coin Corporation, and right. So they invested in that, and then 20% of all the Zcash mining fund goes to that organization, and then about 5% just goes to these people who invest in it early on. And it made me sick to think that, like, what if this replaces significantly a major currency in the world, and there's a small group of people that basically get 20% of all the money in the world. And so I was just like, there's got to be something we can do about this. And I went into the code and I looked at it, and it's actually really simple to edit the code to change that. So first I went on Twitter and I said, why don't we all, everybody, let's just get rid of that tax. We'll just mine it without. And nobody really cared, right? and so, you have to kind of do it, right? So this is the commit that removed the 20% founders award from Zcash. I don't remember exactly. It says there's 2 additions. I don't know what they were, with 250 deletions, right? So I deleted 200 lines. Most of those were tests. About 22 lines, I think, were the actual code to remove the founders award. So I made this, and then I had something. I said, okay, people, hey, we should do this thing that's sort of not very tangible. It's like, here's the code. Now, if you're a miner, you can mine this if you want to, right? So, and this was how I thought. I wrote a little article, but this was sort of going back to, what I sort of pictured, like the Zcash Foundation trying to do. From Mr. Robot, and they're saying, we are going to control the ledger, right? In that show, they kind of the fighting between Ecoin and Bitcoin. And this was about Zcash. Kind of looked a lot like to me. And and here's, just to sort of bring the point home. This is Zuko. Not messaging me. This was somebody else he messaged, and it's a little hard to read. But Zuko says here, basically, they have a trademark on Zcash, the Delaware C Corp Corporation. So he's telling someone, to be clear, we will need to initiate legal action in order to protect the trademark. If we don't do that, the trademark will be invalidated. So in practice, your Twitter account suspended, right? So Zuko's threatening other people, like, we might have to threaten your Twitter account if you're using Zcash in the name, right? Because that's our trademark. And so I was like, oh crap, well, I can't call it Zcash Classic because I could get sued, right? By the Zcash, the Zero Coin Foundation. So, but Zuko actually blessed ZClassic as a name, right? Because it doesn't actually infringe on Zcash in any way. So that is where the name ZClassic comes from. I said, okay, well, we're kicking out the founders reward, it's Z something. You don't own the letter Z, right? And he's like, yeah, we don't own the letter Z yet, or whatever. So we kind of got like the okay from this, right? And then there were people in the Zcash forum, and they were saying, look, well, how could Zcash stick around? There's this other alternative that doesn't take the 20%. It's exactly the same, but it doesn't take out this 20% fee. So how is this going to stay around? So they were already kind of posting that. And, it's interesting. It is actually interesting if you look at the, I guess, by some gauge, just the market capitalization of the 2 coins. I don't, I'm obviously not advising anyone to speculate or anything, but just looking at the past, Zcash has been a larger coin than ZClassic. So, to me, this is all kind of a big experiment. I thought maybe by taking away the 20%, it would always be this big advantage to ZClassic. But actually, we have, it has appeared, at least for the past year, it was the opposite, where by having that founders reward, they were able to do something with it and create enough partnerships and interests that the Zcash has been outperforming ZClassic over the past year. Now, what I feel like we may be seeing now is it's possible that that there's some kind of, because we've been a fairly mined community coin from the beginning, this might be the point where we wind up leapfrogging them. I mean, I don't know, right? Okay, don't take that as any kind of like speculative, obviously, like, I have no idea what is going to happen with price or anything, right? But, price, I'll just say, like, we all know that Bitcoin was $19,000 a few weeks ago, and now it's whatever, 11 or something. So you can lose half your money very quickly investing in any crypto. But this is, so then Zuko, he sort of had to address this founder's reward thing. Came out and he defended the founder's reward, but he also said that he was happy about ZClassic. And so we kind of looked at it as sort of the Red Hat Fedora model, where they're going to keep operating with this, taking the fees, but a lot of ways, ZClassic created some redundancy for their project. So if anything ever went wrong with their project, actually already ZClassic sort of running. So we've sort of been friends, and actually the Zcash developers were some of the biggest contributors to. I mean, if you just look by the commits that we pull in code, obviously the Zcash developers are the biggest contributors to ZClassic. So, so this is what you get when, this is right after I created the code and launched it and announced it to Bitcoin Talk. It's one of maybe the 5th comment in there from Sammy's great. You guys know Sammy 007, I don't know, but Sammy says, like, don't touch POW limit, you fucking moron. And here's a link to the commit. Those bags changed it last second, you're gonna do the same or something. So basically, there's Cunningham's law, which is the best way to get the right answer on the internet is not to ask the question, but it's to post the wrong answer. And that's a lot of what I found to be the case with this project, right? So a lot of things that I've tried to do is I will try to do some things to the best of my own abilities, and oftentimes there are problems and things wrong with it. Is then people come forward and they say, no, that's not right. Do it this way, do it this way. And now all that I try to do is take all those suggestions and say thank you, and can you help do it the right way? And it's really kind of what I do all day now. So now we'll get sort of to the Bitcoin private history. This is actually December 13th, so a little over a month ago. I said, look, there are these things, there are Bitcoin hard forks. Jimmy Song says 2018 is going to be the year of the Bitcoin hard fork. There's Super Bitcoin, Bitcoin Platinum, Bitcoin Uranium, Bitcoin Cash Plus, and Bitcoin Silver. And I proposed the idea right out in the open on Twitter, and I said, look, ZClassic, we have this community, we have this really great privacy technology. It's the year of the Bitcoin fork. Why don't we turn ZClassic into a Bitcoin fork? And then the next day, I said, what are we going to call it? Right? And I ran a Twitter poll. And there was like Bitcoin Shadow, Bitcoin Private, Blitzcoin, and ZBitcoin were the top choices, right? And it actually was not even an overwhelming majority. Because the Bitcoin Private won with about 35% of the 500 votes. And that was a big part of the reason where we came up with it. And then we had to think about how we were going to do this, because we thought this could be a forced takeover of ZClassic. And because we're really a lot more interested in Bitcoin Private than they were in ZClassic a few months ago. And so we thought, why don't we just keep the community together? And I had to think pretty hard about this for about a day. And what I really concluded is that this whole thing that we're doing with crypto economics is about giving everyone control and choices over their own finances. And so I think as a or what all that you can really do is you can offer choices to people. Okay, but you know, and then the miners, they're going to choose whatever they want to mine, and exchanges get to choose whatever the wallets they want to use. The users choose what networks they want to connect to, right? But we had a choice where we could try to sort of coerce people, the miners and the exchanges, to say, look, this is what ZClassic is going to be. It's actually going to be Bitcoin private. Or as a developer, protection and say, you know, you can keep using ZClassic forever if you want to, but you always have this option to move over to Bitcoin private. And I wound up deciding, I think that was the responsible choice, is to offer replay protection and not try to coerce anyone into, you know, even if there's say 70% that wants to switch, not trying to coerce the minority, just giving everyone the freedom to choose which network and which chain they want to use. So that's been our approach. And yeah, and then this is about 2 weeks later, you know, everything just blew up, bigger than I really could have imagined it at the time. And I'd already planned a road trip. And then there was like Jake, and there were all these people chatting. They were like, no, we need to have like a voice meeting. We all have to get together. This thing's getting really huge. And I was on the road, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop and do a Red Lobster. And I kind of just set up shop in the Red Lobster, and they were really cool about it. And you know, and this is today, a few weeks later, and we have 70 contributors, 20 engineers, and it's just grown larger than I can imagine. And then we have this everyone's here now. So that's my talk, and you know, definitely I know there are definitely going to be some questions and probably some more technical questions. So we'll sort of get to those in the Q&A.
All right, so who's ready for an announcement?
Yeah.
Come on, that was weak. All right. We have to test out the sound first, so I'm sorry about that.
Everybody online waiting for it.
If you need an announcement introduction.
Hold on. I got just you know the video, you know what video? We're gonna announce some announcements, so hold on. Is your computer on?
Oh, yeah.
That's loud enough, right? Is that loud enough? Come on, louder. No, it's close to that. I'm gonna redo it for the people online.
Oh, wow. There it is.
I'm just gonna redo it for the people online.
Is that
Classic just flew. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Stream, do you have a boner? Because I do.
all right, guys?
Right away.
Ladies on the live stream, how are you feeling?
This is not a trading or investing conference. This is a Bitcoin private conference, guys. Discussing Rhett's vision here on bringing privacy to Bitcoin. So please do not ask us about the price of Z. So, hey, you ready for the Q&A?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right.
move this out of the way, bring up 4 chairs, or 2,
All right, so,
a couple of chairs.
okay.
You get this, Adib, come on.
Come on, Dave. Bring the muscle in here.
Yeah.
guys. I'm just
We gotta bring Eric if you want muscle.
Yeah. Come on, Eric. We need help. Yes.
I guess just the 3 of us for now?
Yeah.
What?
No,
Yeah,
Eric.
they might ask you one question, right? Just one. Dude, you sit in the middle, man, come on.
Okay, we need to be on the camera here. Okay. Let me see, slide over a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Okay.
Now let's center it on the camera.
All right.
Right there.
Oh, we need one more for David. David?
Dave's gonna be up there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so actually, can you hand Adib, why don't you hold his microphone so people can come up?
No,
Guys,
Eric.
anyone who wants to ask a question, do we want to just make a line to make it easy?
No, he can go right.
So you can walk
Yeah, we
around?
just do it like we did.
Walk around.
Yeah.
All right, so if you want to ask a question, the rules are basically just going to be say who you want to ask the question to, and then ask the question so that we know who it's directed towards, okay?
Yeah.
Everyone got it?
Yep.
What you do on the microphone, before you get the microphone, raise your hand so I can see you. That way I know to come to you guys next and bring the microphone to you.
From there. Okay, first question, guys.
First question.
So this is for Rhett. I just wanted to see if you could go a little bit into the background history of, you were talking today about the inflation and once we fork will be a unique situation. So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So, so when Satoshi created Bitcoin, he set a 21 million limit, hard limit of the coin supply, right? And the reason for that was, part of the reason was because we had this financial crisis in 2008, and it was largely due to this system we have of the fiat dollar in the United States, where the Federal Reserve can print as much money as they want. And then there was this $800 billion bailout to the banks, and there's quantitative easing. And we now, the Federal Reserve's books have grown from 4 trillion to 8 trillion in the past few years, which, you know, I don't know, there's that whole side of the, I guess I don't know what you call it, the reason why a lot of people got into Bitcoin, right, was that there needed to be this promise of a limited supply commodity that no government or no central authority could just print more of. And I believe that's really important to the Bitcoin community. Now, that is not important, for example, to the Ethereum community. In Ethereum, there's 5 Ethereum that gets introduced to the supply every block, and that can go on for infinity, right? So so there's this problem where we have not seen what happens to Bitcoin when the block subsidy sort of goes away, and now all of the mining is incentivized through fees alone. So right now we actually have pretty regular stable blocks, and that may be because there's this block subsidy right now in Bitcoin of 2.5 or 12.5 coins, right? That usually vastly outweighs the fees. And so with what we've seen in the past with Bitcoin is actually every time there's a halving, so when it goes from 50 coins to 25 to 12.5, rate drops, right, of new coins. And then generally, the price of Bitcoin has gone up. Now, that may or may not be because of the halving, right? But so it's unknown what's going to happen once we start reaching lower and lower inflation levels. So there's some people, as far as speculate on price, right? But there's the question is, well, there's less supply being introduced by miners. So miners are now, there's less for them to dump onto the market. But there is a question of will the network be able to operate in a stable, censorship-resistant way if you're giving less reward to the miners, right? So with the way that we are forking ZClassic and Bitcoin Private, we'll actually be closer to over 19 million, maybe 20 million coins. So there will only be 1 million or less left to mine throughout the whole history of Bitcoin Private, right? Assuming that one of the promises of Bitcoin and Bitcoin forks is keeping this limited supply under 21 million coins. And so we don't know how that will play out, right? We don't know what that will mean. And I see it as potentially a very good thing, being one of the lowest inflation Bitcoin forks. But also, it would be really interesting to see how that affects the mining and the ability. So that kind of answer? Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's gonna make me go all the way across the time.
So this one's for Rhett again. On the subject of on-chain atomic transactions, I think saw somewhere about Litecoin figuring out how to do that with Monero. And is there any we can figure out how to do that with Bitcoin Private and ZClassic as far as security tokens go and transactions on chain?
Yeah. I guess like my own personal feeling is that about that is that atomic swaps are really cool from a technical point of view, but they almost never happen, right? Because has it happened like once between Bitcoin and Litecoin? I don't know. It's probably happened a handful of times between some of these chains, right? And people thought about it, and it's really cool because it's a way that you can swap cryptocurrencies without relying on a central exchange, right? We all know that we hate putting our cryptocurrencies, leaving them in the central exchange where they can get hacked. And so you want this way of doing that in a trustless way between chains. But the reality is that if you try to set up an atomic swap, it would be very expensive to try to run some sort of decentralized order book for that. And you may, in fact, it may cost you a Bitcoin fee or a Litecoin or a fee every time you even try to place an order in this decentralized order book, right? And then you'll have to wait minutes for this trade to go through. And what people actually like is high volume, higher speed, lower fee trading. There'll always be more liquidity on these centralized exchanges where people can do thousands of trades per second and see order books like moving really quickly. And so with Bitcoin Private, the vision of Bitcoin Private is I think we really want to focus on actual economic market adoption. So, Bitcoin Private right now is an underlying platform with one of the lowest fees and the fastest block times, and a Bitcoin fork with extra privacy. And so we want people to build applications on top of that actually sort of use a lot of, I guess, real world economic value. And so until we get to the point where we actually see use cases where there's a lot of demand, economic demand for atomic swaps happening in a high volume way, that would be the point where we really want to start focusing resources to try to capture some of the value. But right now, it's really kind of just a, I see it as kind of just like a academic exercise mostly, you know, except for maybe like a few cases. But definitely, I mean, I will definitely obviously want to support like these kinds of contracts and things in the future.
And if you're watching this at home, guys, if you want to leave any questions in the live chat, I'll be monitoring it. And as long as it's not a troll comment, I'll be answering it.
We'll wait for those things. Maybe
Yeah.
we should make a Reddit post and
Yeah.
have people post questions in the Reddit.
Okay. So, go ahead.
This question is for Chicken and Rhett.
I'll take it first since Rhett seems to be doing all the hard work.
Given the fork date and the snapshot date, have you reached out to any of the exchanges, i.e. Bittrex or anyone else, whether or not we're gonna have to move the coins off if you have them on there?
Yeah, so it's really weird having the first question to me not be when fork, so it's kind of nice. Of course, the second question is one I literally am not allowed to answer. It's just, you know, the whole thing is, we're not allowed to talk about it. Ty has actually a much better explanation than me. I'll let him explain to you why it is not good business for us to talk about it. I can't even tell you if I've talked to them, literally. So Ty will give you a better explanation.
Okay, guys. So we get this question all the time on our channel of when a token change. Every time people hear us talk about a particular coin on our channel, they want to know who's going to list on the exchange, when is it, and there's several things that you guys want to consider. First of all, if it's a legitimate project, okay, the team that is building that cryptocurrency project, more than likely they do not want to violate any U.S. financial laws by reaching out to the exchange. If it's a utility token, it's almost, there's some financial issues. Now, keep in mind, guys, I am a trader and investor in cryptos. I am not an attorney. I'm not far from it, okay? But my understanding is, my extremely limited understanding from talking to our lawyers and talking to other legal people that are licensed to talk about these things, right, or understand these things, is that if the project is a legitimate project, more than likely, they will not be able to discuss. They cannot approach the exchanges to request a listing. It's not because of the cost of the listing fee. It's because there's some kind of financial laws and regulations that if you try to go and get listed on the exchange, it can be construed as a security token, right? So if it's a legitimate project, when you go ask them and they say, we don't know or we cannot discuss about it, it's not because they don't want to tell you, it's because if they're trying to comply with US laws, they're not going to tell you they are doing it, and usually they're not doing it. Okay, it's usually a third party or somebody else that has an interest in it, right, that is going to try to work to get it listed. Now, the listing fee, guys, is usually between a few $100,000 that I've heard of to a few $1 million to get a coin listed on an exchange. Part of that requirement of that listing process is that you have to, the project or whoever it is that's working on getting it listed has to sign some confidentiality agreements that they won't disclose how it's being listed. And there's a huge process that they go through, okay? Because if it's a legitimate project, they are going to comply with those confidentiality agreements and not disclose anything. So if you hear, one of the things that we look out for when we look at a cryptocurrency project is if they answer, they tell the public when they're going to get listed on the exchange, more than likely we probably don't want to focus on that project simply because they are either violating US laws, and even if they're not violating US laws, they're violating business confidentiality agreements. If you sign a business agreement with someone and you agree that you're not going to disclose publicly until the exchange discloses it, that the coin is being listed, the fact that that project is willing to disclose publicly when it's going to be listed, more than likely they are probably not, the highest integrity. You guys follow me?
Yep.
So asking a legitimate project and pressing them when their token is going to be listed. If they are a legitimate project, they're not going to answer you. And even if they did know, it would violate laws if they did disclose that. And if the project want to work with the exchange for future updates and wallet updates and stuff, they're not going to break that confidentiality agreement because they need that exchange to update wallets and future business activities. So the more that that project does not know when they're listed, it gives a little bit more confidence. Guys out so that you guys don't press Jake or Rhett or others.
I just wanted to add really quickly that you can get the microphone in again if he wants it, or Kirk is technically next. I just wanted to add, we have an awesome Electrum wallet because of our awesome developers. So you should just use that.
Step on second base.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Kirk?
I just want to ask real quick for the audience. One thing I hear Ty and Leon say a lot is community adoption and developer adoption and support is a big long-term factor on the success of a coin. So just pointing out for the audience how simple it is for both community involvement and also for developers to contribute.
So that was just a comment?
No, just how do
Who are you asking?
For Rhett, how developers get involved and contribute.
So we have a, I have just people coming, they're tweeting at me all day long saying they want to contribute, and they have there's a very wide range and variance in their skill levels, but I try to direct everyone to Discord, and we have a community Discord channel, which I'm sure, what's the easiest way to get an invite to that?
To what?
To the community Discord?
Just come talk to me, or depending on what you want to do, if you come to our public Discord, we have all of the leads of the specific areas, whether that's marketing or development, wallet development, blockchain development, designing, motion design, everything. We have leads of all of those areas. They're all in the public Discord. You can go in there, you can tag them and say, hey, these are my qualifications. I would like to help you out. And then you can, and then you can, and then they'll talk to you and basically just try to gather what, you want to do and how you can help out. Now there has to be some at least micro process to letting people in, right? Because if we just let literally every single in, then we're not going to get the highest quality people. We just get filled with too many people just talking about whatever and not actually doing work, or just leaking information that shouldn't be leaked, right? So we do like to talk with people for a little bit, earn their trust a little bit, and then bring them in, and then really start to get them going. But it's usually just like everything in crypto, it's a really fast process, right? So I just wanted to say, by the way, we created, for people online, a Reddit was created where you can go and list questions on there, and the top ones that get upvoted on Reddit will be the first ones asked when the people in the audience here are done.
And I just want to make a comment, guys, on contributing to the Bitcoin private project. And this is not just contributing code, right? The best way to contribute to the project, if you believe in privacy and you believe in Bitcoin, guys, is to see what the project needs and just do it. Like when our team saw that we needed to organize an event for Bitcoin private, we did a test event, like an informal one in crypto in Frisco, in North Dallas, yesterday with Jake. I told him, I said, hey, we should bring, you should come down here and we should just do a test conference and talk about Bitcoin private. And if it works out and we're able to work together, let's do one real quick and awesome. And that's how this came together. And we put it together and we just cranked it out. In like less than a week, we did 2 conferences, one informally in Dallas, and then one formally in Austin right now. And this became the first official conference, right? You don't need to ask for permission, guys, when it comes to Bitcoin, because it's a permissionless system. Wherever you feel the need that can be contributed, you just go do it. Like the guys from New York here, when they saw that we were doing here and we told them that we had, they just started coming here and helping us clear out the room because we told them that we needed a bigger room. That's how you contribute to the project. You just don't do it. The other thing too is this, raise your hand real quick, Kirk. Raise your hand. Okay, there's Kirk right there from touchtitans.com, right? I mentioned to him that, hey man, we really, really need for this to be highly secured, we need to have ledger support. And he didn't ask permission. I just mentioned that to him. It would be really nice if we had ledger support. And he went and, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but he went and coded up some stuff so that the ledger for Classic went private, and boom, he submitted it to Rhett, and Rhett posted out and asked people to review it. If you're a coder out there, you understand code or review it, go review it. There's a bunch of people that put those code up there. If you could just review it and double check it, and let Rhett know, that's a huge contribution. If you're good on Twitter, help us tweet it out. If you're good at making videos about Bitcoin private, and you're a big privacy advocate, and you can spread the word about the importance of privacy, right? Go do it. You don't need to ask permission, and then you do it, and if it doesn't work out or get the response that you want, just adapt, redo it, or ask Rhett or Jamie how it can be done better, and just go do it.
Absolutely, and I just wanted to add, you can also help if you're a miner by going to our fund.zclassic.org. I have to.
Okay.
Hi, this is for Rhett. I was just wondering your take on proof of stake, and if it turns out successful in Ethereum, is that something that's in the future for Bitcoin private, or are you going to stick with whatever Bitcoin course?
I think that we have some questions right there to consider. I mean, if you there are some people that I respect a lot that like Graham Cohen, for example, is very pessimistic about proof of stake, and so he's actually working on an alternative, a sort of consensus algorithm that's like proof of space and time. You know, I think of all the proof of stake algorithms that are out there, many of them may appear to work because they're actually centralized, and it's really hard to know whether or not they're centralized. And if that's, if that's the case, it's like, well, why then we don't have a decentralized censorship-resistant system to begin with? So, so I think that probably one of the more honest proof of stake projects out there is Casper, right? And we'll have to see. I know Ethereum is throwing a lot of resources at that, and we'll see. Once you actually get into a proof of stake system, it becomes also really hard to have very many participants. So, I think maybe Casper even maybe like 100 stakeholders is basically where it will limit out, and that's very different from proof of work, where you can have thousands and thousands of people with GPU miners all around the world. So we will definitely look at we're going to want to look at the industry and where how new technologies affect these other coins, and that's sort of how we what we did initially to create Bitcoin private, right? We weren't the first Bitcoin fork, but we're able to see these other Bitcoin forks like Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Gold and learn from their success and what worked and what didn't. And so we're going to continue to do that and look at other coins, but there's no plans right now to switch to any proof of stake system.
What was it, Graham guy's name?
What about Graham?
Cohen?
Of Chia Network, Chia Coin or something?
Okay.
This question is for either Jake or Rhett. I'm not sure. I'll let you guys pick. I'm a newbie. I'm literally 30 days into crypto, and so I don't know a lot of the stuff already because I'm kind of running on scared. Understand the mechanics of the fork. One of the things Rhett said a few minutes ago is when the fork occurs, you want both currencies to be active. So does that mean in one wallet you'll fork to be Bitcoin private, and in the other wallet you keep ZCL? Can you explain some of that? Like you said, I'm a newbie.
Yeah, sure. So the basic idea, you have a private key, right? And right now you might have a private key that controls a Bitcoin, and you might have a private key that controls a ZClassic. And if you have this private key that controls a ZClassic, when the network forks, you'll still have that private key that controls that ZClassic key. You will now be able to use that to control a Bitcoin private. And so if you have one ZClassic, you will keep your one ZClassic, and you will also get a Bitcoin private. And if you have one Bitcoin, you'll keep your Bitcoin, and you'll also get one Bitcoin private, right? And so that's just, I guess, sort of like the higher level. So what'll happen is if you have like an Electrum wallet or something, you're holding your ZClassic in an Electrum wallet, then what you'll be able to do is download the Bitcoin private Electrum wallet, and you'll just import the same private key from your ZClassic into your Bitcoin private Electrum wallet, and now you'll be able to control your Bitcoin private coin. So that's sort of from the user's perspective, the mechanics of how it works. That's not, were you asking about sort of the fork, how that's going to happen under the hood, or?
A little both.
Yeah, a little both. So basically, yeah, no one's ever done this, or I guess thought of this before. But honestly, I don't know, like when I look, I mean, if you go and look at the code, I mean, the Bitcoin, so Satoshi, so okay, Zcash is a fork of the original Satoshi Bitcoin, Bitcoin D C++ source code. And ZClassic is a fork of the Zcash fork of the Bitcoin story. And so ZClassic is actually running, you know, Satoshi Nakamoto contributed to ZClassic C++ code. And actually, what Zcash did, there's a lot of their edits in this main.cpp file. And I mean, it kind of makes it pretty easy to read. You can sort of see what's going on. It's like all in main.cpp, right? And then what happens is, you know, there's a few pieces to blockchain technology. Like the miners need to check that a block is valid. The miners need to check that a transaction is valid, right? And that's like a big part of what they're doing. And so, you know, the miners are the ones that they have to agree on this consensus, right? And when ZClassic was launched, there's a set of rules, and everybody who's running a full node on Classic, the software that agrees to like a certain set of rules. And so what we're going to do with what Bitcoin Private is just going to change those rules, right? And we're going to say, okay, you know, if you're running this node, it's going to be using the same ZClassic blockchain, but at a certain height, we're going to change the rules, right? And then anyone can decide if they want to use those set of rules or the old rules, or they can mine one or the other, right? But what the new set of rules is going to do is it's going to set a window where between certain blocks, we're going to take the Bitcoin account balances and we're going to add them as special Coinbase input just directly into normal ZClassic blocks. So ZClassic blocks are about 2 megabytes, and I think we can fit about 10,000 transactions into each block. And so there's 65 million Bitcoin addresses with a positive balance. So that would be about 6,500 blocks, right, would be required if you were putting 10,000 transactions into each block. So there's going to be a window for 6,500 blocks where the miners that are mining on the fork will actually mine these special fork blocks. And another part of the rules is that those blocks are going to have just lower difficulty for that window. So they're going to get mined in like a second, or you know, every few seconds or something. And so there will be this 6,500 block window where the blocks are mined really fast. The rules change. Now, if you're on that network, you're on Bitcoin Credit. That kind of.
Hey guys, I'm not sure which one of you wants to answer this, but I'm a miner and I represent a lot of miners. And so my question is, how is this going to work? So we've got a 21 million supply cap, 19 million coins. You're going to have what, 1.5 or however many million left. Equihash is 2.5 minute blocks. currently block size is 12.5. Is the block size going to change?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, we're gonna drastically reduce the block subsidy. Right, because we have to stay under the 21 million.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, well, the block subsidy will only last a few months. So can you speak to that? And
Sure. So I mean, currently, I mean, you have to remember ZClassic is a new coin relatively. So ZClassic follows the same coin emission schedule as the original Bitcoin. So in the original Bitcoin, it started out as 50 coins per block for 4 years, and then it halved after that to 25, right, for 4 years. And so what ZClassic does is there's 12.5 coins per block, but there's a block every 2.5 minutes. So it's the same 50 coins per 10 minutes, right? It's the same. It's exactly the same emission schedule as Bitcoin. And what that means is that we're actually only into like a year and a few months into. It would be like if you were in Bitcoin a year and a few months into it. And so at the current annualized inflation rate of ZClassic, it's about 85% inflation rate right now, right? And so that's a really high inflation rate. And so I don't know what to say, like if you're a miner and you're trying to mine, it's generally like, if you're looking at the long-term success of the coin, right, it's benefit the miners be mining when there's a higher inflation rate. But when that inflation rate drops, now there's less benefit to the miners, right? But there's more benefit to the people that are holding this this asset that doesn't inflate away as fast as the currency that we all hold, right? And that was sort of part of Satoshi's vision. So yeah, right now the inflation rate in the classic is way worse than the dollar, right? At 85%. And after Bitcoin Private is formed, there definitely will be much lower inflation, and that's part of the balance is figuring out, okay, how much inflation is needed to reward miners to keep a stable and secure network, and then balancing that against Satoshi's vision of a limited supply that can't be inflated away.
so you don't know what that amount is going to be.
We don't have an exact number set yet.
We should have, as we get closer, we can pick the block height exactly. It's going to be a little bit different depending on the hash rate and everything that's going on with the network specifically. And of course, ZClassic as well, about how much it's going to be in the specific block height that we're yet to choose. We just know the snapshot date is going to be February 28th. So you could pretty much make an assumption between a very small range of, somewhere around 20 million or so. So somewhere around 1 million will be left.
I have a question kind of back. Part of like the whole like proof of work as it's scaling down and inflation decreases, then you have less incentive to incentivize for miners to mine it, right? But isn't that the solution of proof of stake, that you have a smaller group of miners that are actually mining it, which then they're actually getting transaction fees as the inflation rate decreases, so they're still operating in the network, so the network doesn't slow down over time.
I mean, yeah, like these are, these are things that are theorized, right? There's some, at some level we can look at blockchains that are using there's all kinds of different implications. But I guess I don't know what, yes, that is sort of the overall outward goal of proof of stake, but there are also all these things that people don't like to publicize about their various proof of stake mechanisms, right? That may not be fair.
Yeah.
And so we need to, in evaluating anything that would be different from Nakamoto consensus proof of work, we need to take any other proposal very seriously in evaluating the fairness.
For Rhett, so we've seen the private sector really take off past few months. The other sector we're kind of seeing is coins that offer masternodes. one, what's your take on that? And two, is there any plans for one masternode?
It's funny. It's so funny. I know very little about masternodes, so that's like a thing. I've heard a lot of support from the community for masternodes. Okay, people here. Like,
One quick survey real quick.
Yeah. Okay. If you're in favor of masternodes, say aye.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this is something I know very little about, to be honest. And you know, community here, and I think that I don't know, like what I've asked people to do actually is to put together proposals, because if you have like I kind of like what I did was I just sort of made something tangible, and then people can make the choice if they want to use it. So if you like masternodes and you actually write a pull request for masternodes, right? That's like something we can test and use, right? So
We'll show you guys a coin after.
So anyway, I'd like to say, yeah, so we can get some proposals for that. It's something I know little about, but we obviously should learn more.
So I just want to add a quick thing there. So on our investing channel, we talk about different cryptocurrencies that we're interested in. And one of the big problems that we see in general, and everybody's been seeing, is with Bitcoin and the whole issue of governance, right? So, and this is not government, okay? So it's not about involving the government, but it's about how do you make a final decision on what direction you should take. And we've seen that all these, we've seen Bitcoin Cash, we've seen Bitcoin Gold, because we can't come to a final decision and they just end up saying, you know what, I'm just gonna go do my own thing, which is, you know, actually a pretty good thing. When we talk about masternodes, the first time I learned about masternodes was in London. We were talking to the Dash team. And the Dash team, they've got this masternode model where effectively, if you are an owner of a masternode, you get to vote on proposals. And I'm not saying that this is exactly the model that should be followed here in Bitcoin Private, but if there is a governance model, you know, whether it be voting through masternodes or through proposals, if there's a formal mechanism to do so, it really helps the project move forward because you have a final decision-making process. And so, just in particular with masternodes, I lost my train of thought. I don't want to hear it.
I'll finish your train of thought for you. Hey, so this is something that I know that when we spoke last time, Rhett, you were concerned about implementing the governance process or treasury. That's why everyone, and that's the reason why you guys are asking about the masternodes, is to make sure the project has funding. Right? Okay, well, why are you guys asking about the masternode?
So that's like what I wasn't a miner back in the day. I'm really adopted Bitcoin. And I've actually switched to only proof of stake coins and stayed away from proof of work coins for this exact reason. One, that a lot of the development process is centralized to the proof of work dev team. And so Masternode, one, enables everybody who's actually mining it has a stake in the coin. Two, it also requires a lot less like specific hardware for actually operating the network. So running all of these GPU miners, you're running them on very small, lightweight VPSs. If we ran in the cloud, it's a lot more energy efficient.
But you realize that the purpose, like one of the primary reasons for having a masternode updates to the network.
And
so because you can stake coins without using a masternode. You can stake and secure the network without even using a masternode.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
The masternodes are designed so that the problem that David was talking about is that a lot of people, when they hear us talk about a governance process, they mistakenly think that we're talking about adding the government or involving the government to a project. A governance process means a final decision-making and a resolution process to where if, you know, half the community wants to update Bitcoin Private with update A, and the other half wants to update it with update B, there's a mechanism to vote on that. And the masternode process is a way to where if you are a stakeholder in the network, submit your vote that, hey, I want update A or I want update B, and that vote is counted and it's done, then it gets implemented into the network. Implement and update such as, okay, so.
All right, one more question and then we're going to take some questions from Rhett.
Could you just hold on for the microphone.
Masternode network is less, resource intensive. The fact that mining is just a huge waste of electricity. But big point about Masternode is a way to secure the network without, using all those intensive resources.
Preach.
And then, it's another way for voting or whatever, but that doesn't have to be like the only.
You don't need a master note.
Variables.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say, I think we all understand what they are, right? We're just kind of belaboring the point right now. I want to say, first of all, I love our mining community, and the last thing I want to do is push them out, especially right now while we're asking them to help us. No, absolutely not. So I want to make that clear right off the bat right now, and I want to switch away from this conversation because it's been going on for a while and move to the Reddit questions. I don't want to cut you off, but we know what masternodes are. We know what proof of stake is. We're considering it. We're thinking about it.
It's not going to be implemented at the fork. It's not on the roadmap, at least.
Not anytime soon.
There's just not enough time right now, but that doesn't mean it's not something that we're thinking about. We promise that we're constantly thinking about how we're going to update everything after the fork, before the fork. I promise. Let's go to the Reddit questions. Who's got Reddit pulled up? Ty?
No, I don't have it. Hey, Eric, can you borrow that mic? You get the phone, can you pull it up? While he's pulling it up, I want to ask, hey, while Jake is pulling up the questions from Reddit, guys, one of the things that when we look at a project, guys, that we really pay attention to is what is the mindset behind the developer or the creator of the project. And I think that, we've been fortunate to talk to Rhett. We spent time with him on lunch before, and we talked to him offline, when I first met him. And he has a lot of insights onto why he's doing this. A lot of people, I think that it's unfair online that a lot of people are accusing him of going after a money grab or going after just building random blockchain projects. I just want you guys to realize something, okay? And I could be totally wrong on this, but when I first met Rhett and our team met him and we had lunch with him and we didn't record the conversation, which most of the stuff that we talked to him about, we should have recorded it for you guys, right? But one of the things that I found out was that, he is a computer science, he's a computer scientist. And what do scientists do? They love to experiment. You guys agree? They experiment and they want to solve a problem and they experiment on things. He just happens to be a computer scientist. He's not a biologist, he's not a chemist or an astronomer or something. In computer science. And he sees a problem that is arising in the Bitcoin community. There's lots of problems, right, that he sees that we may not see because we're not computer scientists like he is. And he's trying to tackle the problems, the biggest problems first, and privacy is one of them that he's tackling, right? But I'd like you to share in your own words, like some of your the inspiration you have, like when you shared with us offline, like talk about how you were experimenting on ZClassic, on these different projects, and now what are you hoping to accomplish with Bitcoin Private so that they hear directly from you and not random trolls online? Straight from the horse's mouth, right? Why don't you share with people why you're building this project?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly. I actually don't know how to address that, but I think that so I've been involved in cryptocurrency for a few years now, and we actually saw a few years ago there was sort of just Bitcoin, and then there was Litecoin and Dogecoin came around, right? So in 2014, we sort of saw the introduction of these altcoins, and now we're seeing kind of this introduction of Bitcoin forks, and a lot of people who are getting into cryptocurrency, they're familiar with Bitcoin, right? Everybody knows that there's this huge need for privacy coins right now. And actually, if you look, it's like, we all know that it's almost like not even worth going over because we went over it. But if you look at like the history of global finance, it was the whole history of the world's global finance. Everything was so much more private until just 20 years ago, right? Everything became electronic. And now all of a sudden we just lost all this privacy in the past 20 years. And a lot of people act like that's normal, right? And it's really not. And but if we look at these privacy oriented cryptocurrencies, some of the best ones were Monero and Zcash, right? But you have this problem. I mean, Monero is really proud of the fact that they're not using Satoshi's code base. And so they're proud that they didn't fork and they innovated. But what that means is that integration is different for Monero than for a Bitcoin fork, right? And so if you're an exchange, you've learned how to integrate Bitcoin or Bitcoin forks, you now have to spend a whole lot more resources integrating Monero. And then Monero has like these really long sync times. It's like a day just to synchronize your full node to Monero. And then there's all these other gotchas. I don't know if people have used Monero, but it's like a learning process, right? Especially even if you're used to Bitcoin. So I recognize for ZClassic is based already on the Bitcoin Satoshi source code. And so we can actually provide that promise, right? Of like, well, what's a Zcash or a Monero? Well, who knows like what those are really supposed to be? But for people that want to use Bitcoin and they want privacy, we can, I think that is the responsibility of this project, is to deliver that. And it was obvious that there was a lot of demand for that, right? But then we just needed to sort of tweak a few different things and learn some of the lessons that we've learned from the existing Bitcoin forks, and then kind of look at, okay, like how is a block structured? Well, a block has Coinbase input transactions and some other transactions. There's a few different things. And we came up with this process to do a fork from ZClassic into a Bitcoin fork. So I don't know, that's kind of my like overall thinking, I guess, of what we could do.
All right, so we're gonna take the first question from Reddit. And as we all know, they ask the most important questions. The number one question is, if Vietnamese thugs with baseball bats come for my taco tokens,
do you want me to read it or
No. How do we prevent them from stealing my Model T parked on the moon? That's the number one upvoted with. I would put it on Mars, maybe. I don't know. Anyone here have a good answer for that? I wasn't joking.
Okay, if Vietnamese thugs with baseball bats come for my taco tokens, how do we prevent them from stealing my Model T parked on the moon? Okay, so the first thing we gotta do is
There's no good answer to this question.
Okay, the best thing to do is to protect your tokens. Okay, not going private or ZClassic or anything. People with baseball bats, what you do is you make sure you use a hardware wallet. And I'm glad that he brought that up because we had several questions asked about the ledger support. So can you explain a little bit about what does it take, when Kirk sends in those lines of code to get ledger support so that people can store their ZClassic on a hardware ledger? What is the next stage after it gets submitted to ledger?
I'm not going to be able to give a great technical answer for that right now, but basically, I mean, yeah, there are some pull requests that are sitting in Ledger's repository right now, and they need to review them. And typically, Nicholas, the CTO of Ledger, he's usually really responsive. I think they're a little overwhelmed at the moment. But yeah, we want to. I've built some custom Ledger hardware applications, and they require loading them on manually with the Python utilities. So that's not really an option for like the normal user. But that would be, that would be an interesting, like, I mean, it's not that hard, but it's like the first step is to play with that. And it's actually pretty fun. If any developers want to try it, you can look at sort of some of the Ledger applications and try importing new apps on your Ledger Nano. And so that would be, I mean, that's the first step, but just getting them to review the pull request. Okay. So Ledger actually has like an app store, and they already support a bunch of coins in their app store, and it's just a matter of they're going to need to just review our pull request and make sure that it's not trying to steal anyone's coins, and then they'll review it, and then it'll go into their app store.
Okay. So the next most upvoted one is to Leon, who I don't think is here.
Okay, what's the question?
Since Leon Food joined just now, I think they think you're Leon Big.
all the Asians look the same.
Maybe we need a better webcam. Could he evaluate a bit about the potential valuation of Bitcoin private? I don't think you can answer that question. So no,
our lawyers said we cannot
answer that question.
Price or valuation or market cap.
But also Leon's not here.
Yeah.
So. Good question. It's actually one that I can answer, which is, will Z address be enabled by default? So this is something that just, as far as I understand it from our developers, can be done within the wallet. And we are absolutely going to put something like that out. And it would be in combination with something that has transparent wallet as default as well. So you can choose. I mean, we're all about choice. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to choose a wallet that can do either or if that's what you prefer. So that's definitely something that we're thinking about. It's probably won't come out until after the fork, but it is something that we've definitely put on our post-fork roadmap that is yet to be released. I have to refresh and see if anything else has come up. So, Rhett, this is a question for you, I think, which is, why not just burn ZClassic, the snapshot, to prevent manipulation leading up to and after the fork?
I don't understand. So burn.
I think he's saying just to basically completely remove ZClassic, so when the snapshot happens, just completely destroy the project.
Yeah, so we thought about that. I mean, I sort of talked about that. We thought about sort of trying to coerce and force the ZClassic project to die and kind of turn into Bitcoin private. And the history of ZClassic actually, I mean, I don't know. I like, it's hard to talk about it without mentioning price, right? But basically, I created ZClassic, and there were a bunch of people that joined that community early on because they were interested in privacy. And then a few months later, they all said, hey, what we want to do is we want to introduce like a 10% developer fund to ZClassic. And I said, no, you can't. Like, the innovation of ZClassic was just a Zcash with no founder's reward. And you can't just put one in again, like that. We can't do that, right? And they were like, well, we really, we need to do it to make more progress. And I was like, well, look, you can do that, you can fork, but like ZClassic has to be, it's just Zcash with no founder's reward. That's all it is, right? It's really dumb and simple, but like that, I don't know, but like it's simple. It's like that's all it is. So they formed the Zen community. They forked off of ZClassic, and most of those people, I think, sold their ZClassic, right? And if you look at the price, this is just the past price. It was like ZClassic started around $3 or $4, and then there was a fork coming up, and then it went up to $8, and then it's actually split. And so the total combined was worth more than ZClassic in the beginning. And like a few months ago, Zen coin was like $40 or something. It was like $2 a coin, right? So they had all kind of just sold out and they left, and they stopped participating in ZClassic. Now what we're seeing now, there's this second fork that's coming out of ZClassic. So, and all of those people that sold their ZClassic probably like wish that they didn't at that point, right? And so, you know, like who knows? Well, I don't know what the future is going to be. Case that it's a good platform to launch future forks off of, because everybody knows that it's a fairly launched proof of work mined ZK Snark coin with no founders reward or anything.
All right, that was a good question and a good answer. We're gonna do one more question and then we're gonna call it a day and probably just, you know, mingle. We'll have another 40 minutes in the room and then we can go over to the step and repeat banner, take some pictures, things like that. So the last question is a great one. And it says, what was it like being in the 1989 True Blood film?
Oh, that's interesting, because I thought they were going to mention Crocodile Dundee 2. Because I actually just found out Crocodile Dundee 2. I had a part in that, a larger part in Crocodile Dundee 2. But it was actually nominated. Crocodile Dundee 2 was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Crocodile Dundee 1. Sorry, Crocodile Dundee 1, not the second one. Sorry, anyway, I thought that was amazing. Yeah, so True Blood, it was actually with, I played Chad Lowe as a younger age, which was Rob Lowe's brother, right? That nobody's ever, Chad Lowe didn't quite make it. And my older brother in the film was the guy who played the lawnmower man. I don't remember his name. And then I had this really heartbreaking scene where I had to walk around a train station. Like, Ray! I was like,
all right, that's a great last question.
Okay, so so we don't have confusion here, guys. At the back, when we go back there and take some pictures with Rhett and everyone, you know, you're gonna be handling the camera. Okay, so David here is going to be handling the camera back there. You can go ahead and set it up. So,
and just a few moments, we're going to get everyone on the team back there quickly. We want to take some pictures by the step and repeat banner for everyone that's been a part of this, and then you know, people who want to take pictures and talk with us and everything, you can start joining in.
Hey, and just real quick too, can you come up here, Adib?
Oh,
okay.
Someone just wants to know that, yeah, this is a good one actually that we should really address, which is, can we make donations to the multi-sig account to join in on the minor program, or you know, or do direct donations have to go to the existing donation addresses listed in the sidebar? So you can donate direct.
Let's bring Adib up and explain that.
Well, what I have to just say is that the answer is no. You cannot. You can directly donate, but you will not be a part of the program. So if you had one ZClassic and you sent it to our multi-signature wallet, we cannot send you back Bitcoin private for that.
It has to come from.
It has to come from hash power. It has to come from hash power. So if you are a miner, how many miners are in here, by the way? Awesome. Hey, nice. We love you guys. How many of you are going to join this program?
Oh, okay. Hold on, just
not bad.
Okay, so when you guys say maybe, what's the hold up, or what's the sticking point?
We want ZClassic at the end. We want to keep the ZClassic at the final.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. I mean, it just there's the whole reason for it is that we need, you know, funding, and so we just can't do that. Otherwise, that would defeat the entire purpose of it, unfortunately.
I think a lot of us are doing some rigs in the program, and some rigs are just.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, what we would be really happy with is if people who absolutely cannot afford, you know, it's like for the people who are planning on mining and keeping ZClassic through the fork, this should help them, right? Because Bitcoin private is going to be the big coin after the fork. We all know that that's what's going to happen. This actually incentivizes, this should work out really well if you were planning as a miner to hold it through the fork. But using that to, you know, pay bills and do things like that, essentially what we would ask of you is to, you know, move your hash power somewhere else. And in that case, you could still get your funds. You reduce the network difficulty for us and allow us to get a higher percentage of it. Now, let's just put this into perspective. If we can get, right now we're at like 20%. If we can get to 50% hash power, we'll be done in 14 days. So if we can just get to that number, if we get to 100%, we'd be done in 7 days. So if we can just get up to those higher numbers, we'll be done with the program really quickly, and then everyone can come back and return to it. So it's really all about just everyone coming together, working together as a community, helping us build Bitcoin private, which it will, right? I mean, we'll be able to spend a lot more funds on development. We'll be able to actually pay some of our developers instead of them just doing volunteer work. We're able to do marketing, which will help us get our name out there even more, should improve, you know, everything around the project. Who is a part of the community.
So just to be clear, if you're a miner and you don't want to participate in the fund, you can help by not mining ZClassic right now.
Yeah.
You can help by mine Ethereum, mine Monero, right? Mine anything else. And that actually helps right now.
Hey, do you want to take a moment just to explain it? Because I don't think I ever explained it.
I kind of did during my talk, but essentially it's that if you join it, every ZClassic that gets donated through hashing power will turn into 1.25 Bitcoin private after the fork. So what's happening right now is you put your ZClassic wallet address in. We can take that ZClassic wallet address and we can register how much ZClassic it's been earning during that time. Well, all that goes to our contribution to or our governance fund, right? And then when we after the fork, what happens is we will generate. Let's say we raise that actual 50,000. We will generate 62.5 thousand in private, and all of that will go directly to the miners who helped in that contribution program, right? So that's why we don't call it a pre-mine, because in a pre-mine, all of the funds go right back to the core development team. That's not basically you're being allowed to mine Bitcoin private right now before it's even out, essentially. And you're getting an added incentive in order to make you do that, because otherwise, why not just keep mining ZClassic and get the same amount, right? But in this case, you get a 25% bonus on what Bitcoin private you would get otherwise. So that's sort of what's happening. Does that make sense? Yeah, we got a question.
I can follow up on that. So this is not necessarily a question for me because I am a miner, but it's a question for more of the forum users or others. Why not match people who already have mined or already have purchased DCL and want to donate it and get that?
We can't. We can't. It's 25, but we literally can't, and it's illegal.
Let's repeat the question.
Yeah, sorry. So the question is why can't people who already mined it just donate the ZClassic since they've already mined it? It doesn't matter. At this point, they've mined it. It's now theirs. So in essence, essentially what the program is doing is you're essentially working for us, kind of, right? By donating hashing power. Whereas in the other case, if you're giving us funds and we're returning back other kinds of funds, we're doing it ICO. And ICOs take months to set up. You set up a nonprofit. That's a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort, right? Not a lot of effort necessarily, but it's something that just with a 1 month to the fork date, that's just not really a viable way to raise funds when it would take us 4 months to set up that kind of process and make it legal.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, no problem.
So basically what you're doing is you're just loaning network for a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
and
so
really guys, if you want Bitcoin private to succeed and not goof around, right? Like these guys said, if you can point those GPUs towards the contribution pool or point it somewhere else, either way, it will help. So that the faster it gets done, the faster that these guys can bring on the development team and get it moving forward. Because the longer it takes, guys, all it's going to do is stall.
So let's call it quits. We're going to move back to the corner. We're going to take some pictures.
Yeah, Eric, you're back there. If you guys can form a line over here, guys, Eric will be controlling the line, guys. Hey, Rhett, you gotta get over there, bro.
Everyone, please allow the team to take pictures first.
Hey, let's point the camera this way. No, let's point this way. Yeah. Yeah, let's just point over there so that they can watch it.
Looks like he's rolling out.
Hey, man.
You should talk as soon as we can.
mining center information?
I haven't. Yeah, I'll
All right, so you head up
So my name's Logan. Do you have any rigs for sick? Then you're trying to get the look in your face.
Yeah.
Come over here so we can do it in an orderly manner.
You're not have it like after thing. But for your answer, I mean, I posted on Craigslist for $5,000 piece because the future value is just so insane.
Yeah.
So I don't have any good prices because
Oh,
as you know,
no prices.
why? What?
This couple is first in line
What are
right
they?
here.
Are they 1070s, 1080s?
10. There are RX 170 Sapphire Mining Edition 8 gigabyte.
What do you pay per card?
I bought them in April of last year, and I paid $350. I bought 100 GPUs.
Are you selling them used?
Honestly, dude,
That's what
you guys have the center.
We're trying to put something together. We're trying to start like accumulating.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to. So the biggest risk of mining is the electricity, and when it's falling below the cost of electricity. So when you make a big operation, I want it to be fully hedged by a windmill. So you draw how many kilowatts in that year, and you have a windmill that's supposed to be that many kilowatts. So maybe it's a little more wind, or maybe it's somewhere around break even. But I really want to do that because there's a big market that I want to tap into, which is retirement. A lot of old people trying to get into crypto, they don't know what the fuck to do. My mom is a private sector, and ROI on mining is far better than and dealing with robots not humans. So it's a lot better. And so when I'm thinking about retiring my mom, how am I going to retire my mom? It's totally crash or something. That shit's done. So if I could just set up mine,
Buy your mom faster.
well, here's the thing that I don't want to comment on that one, but the problem with a pure proof of stake system is that and why Dash I think didn't have to have it.
Can't say
Well, the reason why pure proof of stake is not sustainable for the long term is that because there's no work being created. So I have $1 million, you have $1 million, and you have $1 million, right? And we just put it up to stake, right? And then that money just keeps creating, right? Well, there's no work being done to justify that value. Because when you say Bitcoin is worthless, I say you cannot say that because look at how much time, money, effort, hardware, all that stuff it takes to mine a Bitcoin. Go try and get a Bitcoin.
I guess that's what
no one's saying it's worthless.
Bitcoin is worthless intrinsically, and the electricity and the hardware and all that thing does not create the value of Bitcoin. The value of Bitcoin is what we all agree on, right? And so the idea of a work algorithm is what gives the value to a coin is trying to find something to actually give value to something that really is just digital and it's just electrical, right? There's nothing there.
The value is in the security.
The value is in me and you valuing it. As long as I say it's this and you agree to that, that's how much it's worth.
The value is in the security.
I don't know what security means.
Blockchain.
Yeah.
That's what the value is.
What is security and
without the
freedom?
blockchain?
So in order to, this is the second point. So the one is debatable, but there's also you got to see my side, which we can debate backwards because we haven't seen this go for long enough to see who's going to be right. But then the other value is that if you want the right to make worldwide settlement transactions that are not governed by government authority, you need to go buy the network. If you want secure transactions without a third party, you need to go buy the network. If you want to launder your money outside the U.S. and fill a plane full of cash and gold and fly your ass over the border, then you need to go buy Bitcoin. So that's where the demand comes from, I guess, and the value. And then the security, well, yeah, and then third party, but I think it'll really take off, and we'll go into another figure out the scaling issue.
Yeah, that's why but I think that the solution is not proof of stake or proof of work. Either by them, it's the exact same combination. And we have to have both. Like you have proof. You have like validator nodes like WannaChain is doing, where you have people who have nodes that are like verifying, securing transactions
And if there is someone who's being a bad actor on the network, you know that these validator nodes are the bad signers of this. All these people who are proof of work mining, you can control 51% of the network, and then you really don't know what 51% these bad actors really are, right? So there's no way to isolate them and to take them out. And with master nodes, you do. You know when there are bad nodes. You know that there are people who are like trying to double spend, they're trying to change the blockchain. And so to me, it's a combination where you have proof of work miners, right?
That's
and then you
how I
have
feel
proof
the
of
same way.
stake who are verifying and validating, and then you also know who can be held accountable if things are bad, right?
Yeah.
That's the part that it's like, oh man, master nodes have this thing where it's like all the proof of work. If I could control, if I was the U.S. government and I was scared of Bitcoin, I could actually take over the proof of work in Bitcoin if I put enough money and power, right? You could.
I mean, they're
I don't say
already
it's feasible.
they're,
You could do it.
they're already trying to get control of Bitcoin through blockstream, so it's pretty hard.
What is that?
They're basically the guys that are pushing the innovation in Bitcoin. There's a lot of the wealthy guys, like the big families, like Rockefellers and Rothschilds, are all like that influence, and they're investing in blockstream to push the innovations of Bitcoin forward. So they're already inside. They're already like, we think we're getting away from them. They're already like.
They're already.
I could say some stuff I'm not going to say with the stream going, but about other companies.
Yeah, that's smart.
But basically, there's the powers that be are already inside, and they're building decentralized companies and pushing them.
Come on in.
I sit, he loves it. I know. I can say it.
Everything's fine. Something.
I was practicing earlier. Handstand in front of Bitcoin. Well, with my camera, yeah. I know, I don't sit in chairs. I always want to sit. Really? Yeah. In my house, like, we don't have a lot of furniture in my house, so like, we have a kitchen table and we never sit down. Like, we always sit down. Really?
That's why it's like,
How's it going? It's off now. You can. Well, maybe it's not. I have no idea.
Sorry.